So you guys are down 1, 2, 6.
You need a mic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And even though we know you, Doug, you have to introduce yourself again,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. Hi, Doug Vizard. Lane 10, Sturbridge, South Pond. For those that don't know me, I guess that makes me a resident of Sturbridge, right? Even though we're kind of over in East Brookfield. Even the weather is different over there. No, seriously, you know, my standard weather report on Weather Underground is some East Brookfield station because Sturbridge and East Brookfield just don't commute with weather. There's a thing called Walker Mountain in front of between us. Here tonight just to introduce our next big project on the lakes. Our organization is QQLA, the Quabog Quake and Quonset Lake Association, of which I'm the president, and we are assuming beginning the project, hopeful project of an alum treatment of South Pond. South Pond is a little kettle pond. Not exactly little, it's a great pond, 230-ish acres, depending upon how much it rains. Actually, it doesn't expand very much when it rains because it's a kettle pond, so it's only plus or minus 20 acres tops when it rains. Being a kettle pond and being well used by residents, history of some agriculture around the pond, but a lot of upstream industry, if you will. 50 years of pollution in the Spencer wastewater treatment plant. So that spells a consequence of nutrients and silt accumulation in the lower Quabog down in West Brookfield, where the silt accumulation has increased so that the level altitude in West Brookfield now is just about the same as the sandbar in North Pond. So another lake is developing down there. In 1,000 years, it'll look different, right? In any case, because of this, for a number of years, what we call tailwater, that is to say a lot of rain, brings Quabog water back into South Pond, nutrient water that has accumulated. The dastardly phosphate that gets into little kettle ponds and feeds them. It is now to the point of eutrophication, which is just a big word, which probably really means phosphorus, nutrients, too many nutrients in a pond, wherein the natural thermal recycling that occurs in deep ponds, South Pond has become its perhaps its major source of phosphorus, feeding the upper water column, thence the growth of algae. The amount of algae that has grown in South Pond has been increasing in recent years, and I think just this last year we had 2 really good blooms of blue-green algae. That's the bad kind. And probably the biggest bloom I've ever seen in my life in any pond. which was at least 30, 40 acres of blue-green algae along the west shore. In any case, so we have started the process of studying, and all of those processes that are going to be necessary to convince MDEP, EPA, that we are worth a 319 grant. 319 grant, I am no expert at. You guys probably know more about that than I. But it's basically a 40-60 split, 40 from the EPA and DP, and 60 from the 60% funded from the state federal authorities, and 40% from in-kind contributions, cash, whatever we can get. Implicit in that grant is a host town, some kind of host municipality that is the designee in the grant. And we hope that will be Sturbridge. Sturbridge has, of course, almost the majority interest in South Pond. And we just feel it's appropriate for Sturbridge to be the host on the granting operation. Needless to say, we will seek all funds. There are 2 other towns involved. Both those other towns, Brookfield and East Brookfield, have previously cooperated with 319 grants with our Lake Association for a number of things, weed treatment primarily. Bottom line is, I haven't read the report yet, but it's probably going to amount to a $350,000 to $400,000 job, hopefully in the year 2020. And, well, you can read my letter. You can read the alum treatment PDF. Would like any of your recommendations with regard to how to proceed in the town of Sturbridge. Well, part of that grant, which is due, I believe, sometime in June, will require letters of support from the town or towns involved, and particularly Sturbridge being the host town. And those are letters of commitment in some kind of dollar amount, which we'll all argue about, but that means that pretty soon we're going to have to get together and ask the town of Sturbridge for money. So that's the bottom line. We'll have big fundraisers and so forth and so on. We'll enlist any kind of in-kind contributions. I have lots of questions about what constitutes an in-kind contribution, but we'll try to, 319 grants may have some of that language there, but the last time I looked up a 319 grant website, I think it was like a 2004 revision, so I don't know if there's anything recent there that may be really tricky, really different. I don't know. I will find out. ESS will take the, ESS is a lake management organization that South Pond has and the lakes have used, and very effectively over the last several years with regard to whether it's the big fight with Spencer on the wastewater treatment plant, annual weed treatment, mapping, getting back to even the Sturbridge Conservation Commission with the biology reports and so forth and so on. And they've kept up with it very well. We find that most effective to have to do lake management through their company, and then they hire the vendors for weed treatment and so forth, which is a break from what we used to do many years ago. But we learned that you don't use a weed treatment company for weed mapping and recommendations because they just want to sell weed treatment. So the bottom line is the responsible measure of using a lake management company keeps the chemicals down and the quality of treatment up, and the ultimately the cost down too. So they will be spearheading the operation, and I'll be going around fundraising in different towns. I've been a pest in East Brookfield because we deal with East Brookfield a lot on the flow barrier control, which they own. So anyway, do you feel it is appropriate for the town of Sturbridge to be a host town on the 319 grant?
Well, I think from my point of view, there's a yes to that, and but we're a long ways from that yes. As I look, for example, your references, they're all G.D. Cook references you haven't really brought us a broad spectrum of what we'd need to see as far as the effects of aluminum.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's, if you look at references, it's G.D. Cook, G.D. Cook, R. Kennedy, and G.D. Cook, and then G.D. Cook again at the bottom. It seemed to be in, there's 16,400 treatment facilities in the U.S. right now, or around that.
Oh, there are?
Yeah,
That many?
yeah. So,
Alum treatment facilities?
no, treatment facilities for discharging, wastewater. So, I mean, that's really what you're a source of the problem is the wastewater treatment plant. And is that in compliance, and is that being appropriately funded to make sure that it has the capacities? And, I mean, these are just questions, I'm just throwing questions out that I'd need before I wanted to support monies from Sturbridge. If the Spencer treatment plant is not in compliance, if the Spencer treatment plant is not operating, if it has overflow periods where it's dumping in to the 7 Mile River, that's like my wife mopping up the kitchen when there's a leak in the roof.
Right. From all of the facts we can gather as of now, the Spencer wastewater treatment plant has been in compliance, except for one particular thing, and that's their local discharge into ground of their wastewater.
But you don't have to answer these questions
All
now.
right,
I think it's more if you hear from what other people have to say.
Okay.
I just try to give you a position of stuff that I need to hear.
To your major point, however, the scientific report that, like I said, it just downloaded and will
Yeah.
forward to you
Which report is that? I'm sorry.
from ESS. They just
On Cedar,
Yeah.
on.
South Pond, right?
Yeah.
South Pond sediments. Can be read or contends that the major source of phosphorus in South Pond is now its own internal recycling.
Well, I'd like to see that report.
Yes, and that will be.
Yeah.
So when you have the thermocline flip, it brings the phosphorus up from the base.
Yes. Yes.
Plus you.
So it's that far along in its eutrophication cycle. Yeah.
Well, things like temperature come into question here also. How much is the temperature in the lake being brought down by the the effluent going in, et cetera, et cetera. You know.
Yeah.
And aluminum, it says aluminum is, you know, I'm gonna have to go home because no one in my family will cook with aluminum now. So, you know, it may not be a cancer-causing agent, it may not cause Alzheimer's, but,
Actually, a little bit of aluminum is essential for human metabolism.
yeah, there's a lot of things like that.
Well, okay, so the aluminum factor in South Pond is just like it is in most places. It's the sand. The sand is the major source of aluminum. This is just
You're-
plain good old South Pond sand is
But
probably.
you're talking about treating with aluminum, right?
Yeah, aluminum
Yeah.
aluminum
So you're
sulfate.
not gonna use the sand in South Pond to treat,
Yeah,
you're gonna use aluminum to
Right.
treat.
right.
Okay.
And aluminum attacks phosphorus and it all precipitates to
Right.
the bottom. Right.
And so how many places is it being used now?
There's
Of
been
these
there's been
16,400?
There's been several hundred successful treatments
Okay,
of alum, using alum,
I'd like
in
to
the
see some.
in the
some
United
of the
States.
reports on- There must be some reports out on that.
Yeah, the internet is a pretty good source.
You can be a pretty good source, too. Yeah.
Right, and yeah, and of course, just just the municipalities of Worcester, Holden, Shrewsbury have a number of examples. There are at least three lakes, four lakes that are under treatment or have been treated with alum. And the towns are putting in, I don't know, averages of $40,000 a year to maintain those treatments. Of course, this is what we're talking about is a one-time treatment, might be good for 10 or 15 years, by the way. in
Any other
South
questions
Pond.
here? There is a, Steve,
I'm sorry?
questions?
Well, I would look at the TMDL that was produced for that pond, and before you go to 314, or, to get a grant, 219 grant, you might want to be able to say what the towns have done. That TMDL was probably 10 years ago.
11.
11 years, okay. And anyway, see what the towns have done.
Right.
At that time, that TMDL came out, it said that a portion of the phosphorus and sediment was coming out, or phosphorus was coming out of the wastewater treatment plant, but there was also a lot of non-point source phosphorus, and the TMDL encouraged all the towns to start doing something
Right.
to reduce the phosphorus on their own. And the EPA then was gonna deal with the treatment plant and get them into compliance.
Right.
And also reduce the phosphorus concentrations in their loading.
And the EPA did, as a matter of fact, do a pretty good job with actually your letters of support and Brookfield and East Brookfield over the past 2 years have done a pretty good job at demanding an upgrade of the entire Spencer wastewater treatment plant. That's evident by the March 2018 NIPD's draft permit, and the final, I'm promised, will be issued later this month.
Great.
And that pretty much spells out what Spencer considers to be a $40 million upgrade in the wastewater treatment plant.
Is it
Starting
an
on a schedule.
upgrade and an expansion?
I beg your pardon?
Upgrade and expansion?
Yes. Yeah. and a reduction in phosphorus all at the same time.
Is that proposed, Doug, or is that completed,
The
the upgrade?
The upgrade is proposed, scheduled. The CWMP, this is the outline, has been drafted. I pulled that $40 million estimate right from the Sewer Commission's website that was published a few weeks ago. So the CWMP will be completed. The schedule for upgrade, the way the draft permit was written by the EPA, and quite intentionally written, the schedule for upgrade started the minute that draft permit was issued. Yes.
You mentioned that they were in compliance.
And they were in compliance under their old permit.
Steve, you
Yeah, I
have
mean,
anything?
Alum treatment is a
To do some research.
fairly
What?
I
common.
need to do some
Yeah.
research.
I'm gonna cut this off because this is a 5-minute walk-in,
Okay.
and we've got 25.
That's cool.
Can I
minutes
just
under the-
quickly add a
Go ahead.
comment?
Yeah,
So
sure.
Just 2 comments. One, it is priority habitat, so you would probably want to start some coordination with the Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program, because there's a rare plant there. So you might want to start that with them, and they might have some good information. They might be working on other projects in other towns. And then, just second, as far as, the town being a host or funding options, one thing to think about with that is that takes some time to start that process too. With if the town did decide to do funding for it, it might be something that would probably have to go to town meeting, which means it has to be an article on the warrant. So there's a couple things that would have to be thought about there too for that time frame. So, I mean, I think that if commissioners had information to look at, they could make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, but I think they would have to give that approval to kind of start that process too. So a couple coordinating things that would have to be done too, and I don't know how that would fit in. So that's something that has to be thought about.
We'd also have to have a dollar amount,
Right,
and so
and how that would,
you gotta do some homework on where other sources are coming in, so you'd know how much you're asking each of the towns to.
Right.
kick in.
The total, total
You are
top
an
line,
engineer.
by the way, if you say 350 to 400,000, the total top line on that would be about 160,000 for money we have to raise. And so those are the target numbers, at least for now.
Okay, we've given you a little background of what we'll need to go forward. We need quite a bit more information. And sounds great. Anything we can do to help you, let us know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will forward the scientific report probably sometime tonight to you. Well, to Rebecca.
okay. Do you, should we maybe, our next meeting is in a month exactly. Should we put it on our agenda for that, to have some additional discussion at that time? That might give enough time for,
Yes.
you know, have the
I
report,
will-
any additional
I'll
information.
certainly supplement any homework before that time and be in touch with any additional information that I can forward to you.
One other thing I thought might be useful too is that, I mean, I just did a quick search, and there's 67 adjacent properties to South Pond in Sturbridge, immediately adjacent. And then I did within 200 feet, and it was about 82 or so. But reading this, it's something that we've been kind of talking about and that we put in our permits is, you know, people not using pesticides and herbicides on their properties. That if there was some way, we have a lot of lake people in here right now too, but that we could try to work with those individual property owners to do things to make those improvements that are gonna keep phosphorus from getting into the lake too. Vegetative buffers versus lawn to the lake and things like that. So if there's some way that maybe we could all cooperatively work together to get those residents on board and make those changes too, it will have an impact too.
Yes.
So.
Oh, yeah, we've tried to publicize, put in newsletters, urgent pleas to honor the Massachusetts law passed 2 years ago, the phosphate law,
No, 2015.
2015,
When's that?
3 years ago.
3 years ago.
Which should be very potent if it were,
If they pay attention.
if they pay attention. On the other hand, vendors will naturally have to pay attention, because if they get caught throwing a bunch of 10, 20, 10 on somebody's lawn, then, you know, that's, they're liable. As far as I can see, the vendors in the area, with regard to segregating bags and keeping recommended nitrogen fertilizers here, and then the other agricultural fertilizers there.
Yeah.
They do a pretty good job at that.
Well, there are only 85,000 chemicals being used on a daily basis in homes in the United States, so.
Oh, yes. Right. And if you think we-
the discussion.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. All right, thank you. Yeah, we got it.
Chemicals.
if you think
Thanks
we-
for coming in.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
In the interest of saving time, the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will hold all public hearings tonight for work within a wetland, water body, or resource area and/or within a 200-foot buffer zone to a wetland, water body, or resource area in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL, Chapter 131, Section 40, and associated regulations, and the Town of Sturbridge Wetland Bylaws and associated regulations. We will not be reading the newspaper ad.
We can add it on.
Prior to opening the first hearing of each project, the applicant is to
All right,
submit
we'll
proof of
send you that report
notification to
and then
abutters
I'll,
within 200
email you
feet
back and let you know
of the
before that.
subject
Okay?
property line and
Thanks,
proof
have a good
of
one.
legal newspaper advertisement. These items are not submitted, the public hearing will not open. Additionally, prior to the start of each public hearing, we will announce the location of the project, the applicant, and the applicant's representative. If any of the visitors have not legibly signed in yet, please do. Also, if any visitors are recording this meeting, please let us know. Thank you.
All right. SCB, Notice of Intent, Sturbridge Zoning Bylaw, Section 4.04, 24 Hamilton Road, for removal of an earthen berm as part of the Hamilton Rod and Gun Club gravel removal project. Okay, 6:15.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
Good evening, Don Taft from the Hammond Rod and Gun Club.
How you doing?
Very good.
Usually you come with at least a couple other members. What the heck's going on?
Well, unfortunately, the president and his wife, who is the treasurer, are in Las Vegas, so they couldn't make it tonight.
Well, wait a
Not
minute, maybe you
unfortunate
can
for
have them
them.
collect money for Doug.
Well, that's true. That might work as well.
Okay.
All right, so, so we have this notice of intent in front of us. This is only under, our local bylaw. It's an 8% slope within 500 feet. So there's two plans here. There's a kind of a red line here which shows where the work they're doing on the steep slopes are, to give you an idea of what we're looking at. Obviously, we, you know, as part of this project, kind of looking at everything a little bit too, but that's what triggered the review of this. So this notice of intent came in. So this is for the long-term implementation of the stormwater management when the gravel operation is done.
Okay.
So we had this filing in front of us, and then, you know, we had the issue with the breach in the sedimentation controls out there. So we had the enforcement order issued. I think, right, you were all there for our site visit. So this plan, the implementation of this plan will, you know, hopefully for the long term, resolve any stormwater that'll be coming off that. So if you've looked at the plan, there's, you know, there's loam and seeding of all these slopes off of here too, which will drastically help with what kind of issue we're having right now.
Okay, let's stop. Give me a locator. Where am I here on this? So,
What do you mean? Oh, my laser's not working here.
that if you'd like.
yeah,
You have a laser actually over there, a little pointer.
yeah, if you can do it.
All right, yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So-
Lake's over here.
So right in this area is the clubhouse,
Right.
and this is the pistol house. The area that we're talking about removing is this earthen berm in this area, and I've enclosed the area in red on the other plan because this is the 500-foot buffer. But the main area that we want to remove the earthen berm is right in here, and the reason for that is so that we can get this retention area in place. So there are actually a pretty significant retention area here, another one here, and then this one, which is on the back side. And this is kind of the high point. All of this goes this way, and we're trying to capture all of this in these three areas. So this is a local request. We will come for a full request because there is some work that's going to require these drainage lines, which is not part of this request at this time.
Right, they're still working on those plans, but,
Where is the pond?
the pond's over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, road's over here in this area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, so this will be a discharge, which will connect to that
Yeah.
existing catch basin with the outlet over by the pond. So we'll look at that separately.
Okay. All right.
I wonder if simultaneous with taking out that berm, if we could talk about something the equivalent of maybe a camel hump at the very large entrance area. Because it would appear that a couple of times the washouts occurred right at the entrance area where everything spread across the road. If we put a hump at the driveway entrance, it would divert the water down toward that retention basin, as opposed to letting it flow out on the road. Now, I'll grant you that that may end up with some amount of increased maintenance requirements, because a lot of the spoils of the sand and gravel operation are gonna end up in that. But they're gonna end up there one way or another.
So
No.
we've been talking with Ramco, who is the contractor. He is developing a plan, a short-term plan, a long-term plan, and a maintenance plan to address all of those items.
It'd be really good if they looked at that even for short-term.
You would have, I believe the date is the 15th on
Yeah,
the
so
enforcement order.
on the enforcement order, we outlined items that we were ordering for. So immediate implementation of sedimentation erosion controls, they started that. On Friday, I did go out there and meet them, and Ramco out there. We talked
You
about.
met Ramco?
Yep. They had S&M Farms out there with straw bales at that time. They also had Helgerson out there who was cleaning out the catch basin and the outlet riprap area. We all talked about where things should go. Did put some things in place then, but obviously the ground was still frozen.
He was going to be back there today. I did swing by there on my way to here, and he has put some more hay bales out. He does need to continue to bring them all the way over across the lawn.
Okay. Yeah, and originally we thought, the weather forecast was going to be rain all week, so luckily we haven't had that right after this warm thaw with everything melting. So, yeah, I did stop by Monday morning when I went through that area and did check on that, and he did have a lot of things in place, and he's going to put more. So we kind of sketched it out on an aerial photograph, so we were all in the same place. We also talked about what we had asked for. So one thing was we develop a plan for the routine maintenance of these sedimentation controls while they're for now, and who would be responsible for that. So we talked about that. Ramco is going to be doing that. We talked about a plan for the parking lot. I think what we saw when it was frozen out there was a lot of that water was coming from the gravel operation through the parking lot, but we know that there's probably improvements that can be made in the long term in the parking lot too. So that's something that was asked for on that. We do have, this is the long-term plan for that, so we didn't ask for that in the enforcement order because we are reviewing this now. But we have that here, and I did outline that we have that in our enforcement order. And then we asked for specific dates. We talked about 2 weeks for a date to get this information by. So we did ask for the routine inspection plan by February 14th. One other thing we did ask for is a restoration plan for impacted jurisdictional resource areas. So that's actually one thing we talked about there too. RIMCO does have a wetland scientist who actually used to work for DEP that does things for them. So that person's supposed to be contacting me to go out and do an assessment of that and to come up with a remediation plan for any impacts. So we're working on that as well.
Now, Rebecca, he indicated that she would go by on a periodic basis. Do you have a preference as to whether that's 2 weeks or 3 weeks or?
Well, so we'll ask for someone to check on the sedimentation controls, and that might be more often that.
I was going to suggest that maybe it should be also weather dependent.
Yes, it should be.
Oh, absolutely. So in our permit, when we issue this permit, that'll be part of one of our
Okay.
conditions. We actually have a whole section of conditions for that.
After
For
every storm, it
now-
must be checked.
Oh, yeah, and any maintenance is done. Until they start this project, I mean, we can have that information in the plan that he gives us, and right, it probably will be something if there's a storm to check it, otherwise weekly checks on that. And would that be her or somebody else? That depends. I think her job, if he wanted that person to do it, she could do that. I was thinking she'd probably more do the assessment for impacts to resource areas, and someone on their project team could check those, but either or, maybe an independent person might be better.
But we should make certain that prior to the time of our issuing the order of conditions, that there is a statement that they have accepted that someone, whether it's one of the people from the Rod and Gun Club or one of the people from the contract company, is going out after every storm. Because typically, the way we find out about it is a resident drives down the road and says, yo, we got a problem.
Right. We
We
did
don't
talk
want
to
that to happen.
Ramco about that, and he did say that they would verbally that he would do that. That
but
they'd be
they're not in
responsible.
town.
No, I know, but we want something. We want a plan in writing from them.
Yeah, we had a plan in writing from them. We had an original order of conditions on the property for that went into violation.
We don't have orders of conditions for that.
For this here, but we had, when they originally came before us.
Originally,
yeah,
10 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, so tell me how it's changed now. I mean, other than, definition of what's going to be there and what they're going to do. How am I supposed to feel that they're not gonna just, because, what I heard about them when I was out there was that they're pretty much were going and taking the gravel and doing what they damn pleased. And that was what I heard.
Well,
So,
I mean, we
Remco, yeah,
issued them an enforcement order. I mean, he did
Right.
meet me out there
Yeah.
on Friday. We came up with a plan. They're supposed to give us these materials. If they don't give us these materials, then I think we can take further action on them.
so the materials they're giving us are,
They build silt fence.
This is the enforcement order.
Okay.
This
Yep.
is what we've asked for.
okay, and they've said they would give us everything that we asked for?
Yes, he has the enforcement order. We went over the items. We talked
Okay,
about
that
it.
was-
We should be getting things immediately. He took the first steps, which are
Yeah.
outlined under
Yep.
number 1.
So he has shown much more diligence in the last week, week and a half actually, and he had Helgerson down there. He had his people there putting the hay bales in. And he
Yeah.
said he would continue to do more of that as the ground thawed. So it's kind of a two-prong. He did what he could do, and he will continue to work and to improve and to maintain the erosion control and the sediment control that's there. And then he said he would write and submit the short-term plan, the long-term plan, and he had an environmental specialist that is now on their staff, who he said lives locally. I don't know if she's in Sturbridge or not, but he said she will be down to look at that as required, whether that's a set period of time or if it's by weather conditions. And he did step up and committed to doing all those things.
And that's the person that's in charge of the
Yeah.
erosion controls?
That's Ramco. That's the contractor that's been.
Who's Helgerson?
Helgerson was a vac truck service, and they came in and cleaned out
Yeah,
the
they do drains.
catch basins.
Are they gonna continue to be part of this? Are they the ones that,
I would assume that in his plan, that would have to be part of it as well, yes.
so is he a subcontractor to, Ramco?
Ramco had them come in to provide those services, yes.
Yeah, if I may, what we need here is some people, this should follow the same protocol as the stormwater pollution prevention plan, where you're the owner,
Right.
Ramco is the operator. If he has a subcontractor to do the erosion controls, and then that person, or that subcontractor then needs to identify somebody that would be responsible for looking at those erosion controls under the guidelines that we're gonna propose. And it should be, if there's an impending storm, that person needs to go out and take a look at the erosion controls. Now, anybody can do that if if they're trained and this is what it's supposed to look like and this is what it's not supposed to look like, and you get on the horn and get somebody to come and fix it, that would be whoever the subcontractor is. And then after a significant storm, and there's arguments, different states, some people say 1/4 of an inch, some people say 1/2 inch, then it has to be inspected again. I'm just quoting what happens in a SWIP, which seems like there would be one for this, but not for this next piece. But we're sort of blending these two together here. We're
Yeah.
discussing both of them.
Right.
Trying to straighten out the mess that's out there now. But that has to be formalized. It can't be, and then if there is no inclement weather, no rain, then there should be a period of time that they go and take a look at it, and inspect all the erosion controls and make sure that they're functioning.
Right, and we ask for, depending on the nature of the project, sometimes progress reports once or twice a month to ensure that someone's doing it, and that's kind of our trigger as well. But I mean, I can give you a lot of the conditions and language if you'd like, and that can, if that helps to write your plan so it's addressing our needs, it can give you some of that language.
Well, one of the things that we asked for in our meeting when Ramco was there was that everybody be kept into the loop so that we know what they're committing to and that you know what they're committing to. And so there's no question about what they will do and what their responsibility is.
Now, has the road been cleaned up, going down the road?
I think that was cleaned up initially.
Wasn't cleaned up when we were there.
Did he vacuum it when we were out there, do you know? I think he
Ferguson was down there,
yeah.
yeah.
So it was.
Yeah, but I think a little bit was cleaned up.
And
There.
anything toward the
I
water?
didn't notice anything.
Because you had said that there was silting in the water.
Right, it ran down the road and went into the
Yeah.
water, yeah.
So nothing's being done with that?
Not in the stream. He did ask when we were out there if we wanted to have Helgerson go in and clean out any sediment, but we hadn't assessed it at that time. And, there is a sediment deposit there you can see. I don't know if it's just from scour from the perched pipe or not, or if it's not. I didn't feel comfortable on Friday having him go in there and clean that out without really kind of looking at it first, or someone else looking at it with me, so.
Without a plan?
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah,
Yeah, he did not go into the stream because basically we told him not to.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So something needs to be done with that probably, huh?
Right, that's outlined in here, so that's, develop a plan to restore all impacted resource areas.
Okay.
So we talked
Yeah.
about doing an assessment, with his consultant, so,
And that would be an impacted resource area?
yeah.
Okay. What about plowing? How is it plowed now? Because it's not gonna be rain, we're gonna get snow.
Well, we have a contractor who does the plowing.
Where does he, is there a directional spot that you store your?
He tries to push it to the high side, up beyond the pavilion,
Okay.
and to the back side. over toward
Yeah.
where the hay bales are.
Yeah.
Tries not to push it toward the pond.
Okay.
He should more than try. He should not push it towards the pond.
Yeah.
Period.
Catch and chicken is 6 to 10 inches next week.
Wow.
Anything else, gentlemen? Dave, you all set? All right. Do I have a motion?
I move we close the hearing.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Before I do that, anybody in the audience like to speak on this? Okay, let's try that again. All in favor? Thank you. Anybody want to propose a,
Yeah, I will. Well, we can't issue a negative determination. Yeah, we issue a negative under the Wetland Protection Act.
Nope, we're not looking at it under Wetlands Protection Act
Okay.
for this filing. So this is just,
Sturbridge bylaw?
yep, Sturbridge bylaw, so it's just orders of conditions.
Yeah.
Zoning, actually, zoning bylaw.
Yeah, with the order of conditions already described by the agent.
Yeah.
And I need a second.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
In this case, let's pray for no rain.
I'm sorry?
In this case, let's pray for no rain, John.
So Don, I was gonna reach out to Jonathan anyway, so I'll send an email, between the three of us and for any correspondence moving forward, but I do wanna go back out this week and see what he can get done.
Let me know, I'll
Okay.
try to, if I'm available, I'll
Okay.
try to meet you.
Okay, I'll put that in the email
I
too.
need to call him anyway because he needs to finish that one section across the lawn that he said he was gonna do.
Okay.
Great. All right, we are now at 6:30 time. Request for determination of applicability for 30 Lad Road.
That one, sorry, that one's still on there, but they recently asked for a continuation to our next meeting,
All right,
so that we're not holding that public hearing.
so do I need to ask the board if they approve of continuation, or do we just go by it?
I don't know.
You normally have to have approval from the board, but it doesn't have to be a vote. You just need to have a consensus.
Consensus to continue it?
Is this something continuing from, and
So,
Yes.
Yes.
this is the
correct.
same,
Yep,
Yep.
yep, so we had a, public hearing for this in December. They asked, they wanted to include their forestry activities within their request for determination of applicability. They're still working on that. From my understanding, they also may need to move where the driveway cut goes in per DPW. So they're looking at revising that plan. And that's where it stands. The engineer
Right.
was working on the 8% slopes for us. It just wasn't finalized.
but a request for determination of applicability is different from the NOI. That's what I'm
Correct.
saying.
No, I know.
This is brand new, right?
It's not brand new.
Coming in for a request, they've already done that?
They already did, and in
Yeah.
December, and he asked for a continuation.
That was a long time ago,
Yeah.
my dear.
Yeah, no, I know.
I am 74.
Is the
All right.
400 by 400
All
a
right.
correct number?
Beg your pardon?
It was at the time, yes, that's what the
Yeah.
plan showed.
You realize what that computes to in terms of acres?
I did the math for it before, but I don't remember what it
It's a
was.
giant number. It's like 10 acres.
No, I think it's like 3-ish acres, I think,
400 times 400, 160,000.
divided by
42.
42,000.
Divided by 40.
Right, 40, yeah, it's 42, but yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like 4
Two
acres.
to be exact, but
Let's,
that's okay.
all consensus to continue to the next meeting?
Sure.
Thank you. All right, we are now at 6:45.
Wow, we really almost are.
Yeah, we're almost on time.
If people would not show up, we
Yeah.
could run a meeting on time.
Could have given you more time, I didn't know. Request for determination of applicability, 158 Lane 8, proposed garage represented by Jalbert Engineering for the applicant, C. Nelson. Hi, Lenny.
Hey, Lenny, how's it going?
Before we proceed, I'd like to give you the certified abutters list mailing and the legal ad for the subject property.
Thank you.
My name is Leonard Jalbert. I'm from Jalbert Engineering. I'm presenting a project which is located at Lane 8 in the town of Sturbridge, which is immediately adjacent to South Pond, and the property number is at 158. What they're actually proposing is a attached one-stall garage, which will be a post and beam construction, located immediately adjacent to the front section of the house as shown in red right there, which will be 12 by 20. The area of construction will be within the parking facility that is at the lot presently, so there will be no disturbance relative to any tree removal or anything. The only thing that will take place, there'll be a slight excavation where the foundation is going to construct a 6-inch slab for the garage, and then post and beam construction will be the columns for the post and beam in that area. So the amount of excavation at best is minimal, was basically staying on grade. What it is we put in a soil erosion control barrier, which is basically on the northwesterly side of the driveway running parallel to it.
Excuse me,
Then-
Lenny, why don't you use the clicker, please?
Okay, we're putting in be better this way. Putting in an erosion control barrier here, going into this section here to contain any excavation and siltation that would take place from here, in this area, and not going near the lake itself. The area which is basically southerly of this in here is basically what you would classify as a geodetic kettle, which is actually a inundation in this area that collects the water running from this area here, around here, completely through the whole complete site in that area itself. Doing a determination of this area here, seeing why we did not classify it as a isolated wetland. The fact of the matter is that the soil itself is a Merrimack soil, which is basically a Class 1, Class 2 soil in this area, which has a relatively high percolation rate, which would not retain any water in this area. I am under the impression that the board went to the site for an inspection and found water located in this area, which is obviously natural because of the fact that the ground was completely frozen and was totally impervious. That's why the water was there. We checked it yesterday at the site with your agent. The vegetation there was under 5% wetland vegetation, which did not even come close to a classification for wetland. The checking the tree system for any wetland rings or anything around the trees. There was no evident area within that. The trees themselves are all basically deciduous, with a few pine that were located within the loyal area, which it was stated that they might be at a hummock within the area, which I kind of took that with a grain of salt. I don't think that was really exaggerating, but the thing is that they're growing there, which shows that there is no wetland in that area whatsoever. There was a bit of English ivy over here, which I would say what happened is
guessing it'd have to be washed out from planting. She had a planting bed here in the front of the house, and it must have washed down into there and started growing in there. Outside of that, it's not native to the area. It's kind of a fluky thing because that's why it's there. So it's not natural at all. The trees themselves basically were predominantly deciduous. There were a couple white birches, one black birch, which was on the southerly side on this area over here. And then checking the root systems were relatively deep, which meant that the water table is low in that area. Checking at the soil maps in the area, it's a Merrimack soil, which puts the water table down low, and therefore we just totally discontinued any research onto it and to just let it go as a period. It's not an isolated wetland. As far as the control here, we have excavation that would be going in with a truck out the road, and there'll be no stockpiling of any soil there or nothing, and the grade change here is the garage is located right now on the existing driveway. It's not going to change at all. So there's no grade changes, no change in soil conditions. Everything's will be staying basically as is. Any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Where's the soil coming from that they're gonna load on a truck and take out? I thought you said there was.
Basically, right here, what we're going to do is that in this area here, we'll be excavating maybe 6 inches of the soil around the garage area here, which is say 12 by 20, which is 240 square feet. You're talking maybe 120 square feet. So you're talking cubic feet rather. So you're talking maybe 4 to 5 yards there for the basic here, and then the piers going in. You may be talking maybe 1 truckload coming off the site. It's minimal, you know.
Sounds good.
David?
Becky?
Yeah, so I did go out yesterday morning with Lenny. I had to go out there anyways for that other property near there. So we did go out there and look at that. And I concur with what Lenny's saying. When we came back, I did look up, soils are the Merrimack, which is a well-drained soil. When we were out there, vegetation, ground cover was that English ivy that obviously has come in from the property. It's, an upland species. Predominantly oaks. There was a few birches, but it was predominantly oaks in there. No leaf staining evidence. I was able to kind of kick things around a little bit. What we did see for standing frozen water was already infiltrated. It wasn't there anymore. So I don't really have any concerns. We did look at, for other signs of evidence there too. Don't think there's any concern that it's functioning as a wetland. So any concerns with that? I mean, this is a determination of applicability. All the work is outside of our 100-foot buffer zone, so it appears that it's not subject to the Wetlands Protection Act. I think that this could be approved. The determination process would be subject to our local bylaw, some basic conditioning for the garage because it is in, a disturbed driveway area. There's not a lot of earthwork here. No stockpiling, I think, would be a condition. Maintaining the erosion control barrier as well would be suitable for it.
David?
Just one question. Lenny, you said that there are somewhere around 5% plants, wetland plants in that area. Were any of them obligate species?
No, what I did, I used this term 5% mainly because that's actually 10% of the requirement, okay? But there's basically was nothing there that was evident at all, period.
No trees being removed, right?
Please?
No trees being cut down?
Not in the middle of the driveway,
Yeah,
no.
that's what I was just trying to remember. I thought that was the case.
In that non-wetland that you're talking about, we went out there, I don't know who was with me. Thought it was you, Becky, but I don't know what. And because we had complaints of water running down that driveway. And in fact, we went out there and it was pretty close to an intermittent stream. And it was summer. and it was going down into that basin. So, I don't question that it's not a wetland, but do you plan to do anything in that basin?
Absolutely nothing, leave it as is.
Okay. Because it's taking a lot of water storage now.
It's taking basically the water area runoff from that complete area, yes.
I did meet,
No question about it, but if you look at the way it's located, when I said geologically, it's a kettle, which is right out here, and there's no discharge area at all other than what's going into it.
Right, okay.
It's isolated within itself.
Anybody in the audience like to speak on this? Okay, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Second? Any discussion? All in favor of closing the public hearing, okay? All right, do we want to,
Yeah, we'll make a motion to approve it according to the local bylaws with the order of conditions that Becky has stipulated.
so for the determination, it'd be a positive number 5.
Yep.
Positive 2B, we're not approving, we're not confirming any resource area delineation.
Yep. And
And
a
then
negative number 3.
Well, a negative number 4 for this one, because it's not within an area or a
Because
buffer
it's out-
zone,
oh,
because it's
right.
outside of, yep.
all right?
I second that.
Second, David. Any discussion? All in favor? Thanks, Lenny.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Lonnie.
Sign the determination.
Take care, Lenny.
You can't do that on these hours. Can't do that on these hours. It's 7:03, the office is closed. Oh, thank you.
We bureaucrats are what?
All right?
Just between you and I, you know, world's record getting in touch with Todd Holland's Conservation Commission. I've made 15 calls.
New business, Beck? New business, discussion of Lead Mine Mountain Conservation Area?
Pretty good.
Is that what you want to do now?
No, Liz Newlands is coming in for that.
No one's coming in for that?
Liz
Okay.
Newland,
Oh, she is?
yeah,
Okay.
she's not here, so. Bill is not here for our Mass DOT project.
Did he have a
Steve
real
is here
good reason?
for the
What?
revised, Steve Soper is here for the revised scope for
Where are we on that? Was it,
down in the bottom there.
There was a question from one of the members.
okay.
Steve?
What?
Oh, I was just asking why DOT didn't show up.
He said he is gonna come in.
He's not here yet.
It's not here yet.
Oh, okay, good. I missed that part.
Okay. Okay, we're going to an amendment request for a determination of applicability,
Have a good night.
Take care, Lenny.
revised works, scope request for 241/245 Main Street, C. Moran.
Hello, Stephen.
Hi guys, Steven Soper, Silver Construction. We just, from what we went on last time at 245 Main Street, we just want to add a little bit to it. Because he wasn't,
Sorry, Steve, I'm just
Go
gonna
ahead.
pass these down. This is a revised scope. There's only 4 of you. With a sketch plan for discussion.
I know you guys like my sketches.
Quality craftsmanship.
That's right.
I'm reminded of Picasso's Blue Period. I made that up.
So, basically what we have is he wants to be able to put a tank, the 2 tanks that are existing there now, he wants to be able to put a tank back to kind of replace those 2. That's what he's looking at now. It's a 1,000-gallon double-wall tank with a 110% containment. It the fuel, all the nozzles, the hoses, everything is contained in that tank. So you open the top up and you take the hose out and you put it in the truck. The pump is inside there, so it's not like it is now. The nozzle's mounted on the wall, dripping down. You know what I mean? It's a much neater, cleaner system than what he's got there now. So he wants to be able to put that back there after he's done. So after we're done taking the tanks out, the plan as of right now is to put that back there as soon as he can to kind of make sure that that he has fuel for the trucks. And then in the springtime, after it settles a little bit, is to repave that area. That area is, if you go up there and look, you can see at one time the whole thing was paved between the two buildings. But he just wants to pave half of it now, so it's about 25 feet in the front edge and about 40 feet in the back edge. I took some pictures. I sent them to Becky. There.
Yeah, I can put them up.
Yeah,
too.
there's asphalt there now. It's old and it's covered, but it's definitely there. So, and I, in my opinion, I think the asphalt is a good idea. Anytime you're doing any kind of oil or diesel around, you'd want it to hit the pavement first. So
If he puts that in though, Stephen, is he gonna put a berm around the outside edge of the pavement so that we don't get runoff directly from the pavement down into the stream bed?
we can, sure.
And is that structure that you were just showing a picture of, is that what's going in the 7x7s?
Yeah, it's going, as far forward as we can get it.
Well, it's up to the rest of the commission as to whether we put that in part of the order of conditions. But it seems to me that that's one way of being able to further protect Hobbs Brook. Especially if, right now, it's impervious. It doesn't look like it is, but it probably is because of generations of use and pounding with the heavy trucks, et cetera. It's not gonna change if you put asphalt on it, but it will give it the opportunity for faster flow.
Yeah,
So if we put a berm around it, at least it would contain it.
sure. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
And that way, if something, God forbid, if something happens in filling or something like that, instead of the spill going over the side, the guys can get some easy dry or speedy dry or something like that and
Yeah.
get it cleaned up.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that, sure.
All right?
So Steve gave us some pictures to show where asphalt is now. So this is looking into the gated area. This is obviously where it's getting filled. You can see over here, right, it probably was all paved at one point. A lot of it's broken up. I mean, that one doesn't matter, and it's just dirt. Right, this is looking where the nozzles are over here. There is some pavement there. We have some pavement near the tanks. This is on the side of the building. You can see there's a little bit of pavement here, but this is all
Yeah, we're not gonna
open.
pave.
They're not proposing
that
to
far
pave
over.
anything there. Now, as far as, this is not orders of conditions. This is a determination of applicability. A lot of discussion at our last meeting about aspects of the project and how it can move forward. It wasn't clear exactly last time. Did he want to put a tank back, where a tank would go? As far as, we gave the permission for removing the underground tanks under the RDA process, because we thought that was a good outcome for getting those out of there. Putting tanks back, there's a question about the process for moving forward with how we would do that. Is that a notice of intent? Can you do it under this process? Now, as far as the pavement aspect goes, we were having some discussion about that, and in some situations, Wetlands Protection Act has exemptions, things that are exempt from going through notice of intent review process. So I kind of went back to those because I knew there was something about driveways, residential driveways or whatnot. So in your packets, I have the exemptions for you. So this being a commercial site, I don't think the pavement aspect of it can fit an exemption. So I just want to go over that. So there's one exemption for pavement repair, resurfacing, and reclamation, but it's for existing roadways. where it's for roadway projects. And the other one that talks about it is Q on your list, and that's the repair, replacement of existing and lawfully located driveway servicing not more than 2 dwelling units, provided that all work remains within the existing limits of the driveway and all surfaces are permanently stabilized within 14 days. So sometimes pavement replacement can be exempt. So I looked up just to make sure too for dwelling, so dwelling, house or apartment or other place of dwelling. So, I don't think, I think he can obviously pave it, and I think he would have to go through the notice of intent process for that. Because he is a commercial site, he is subject to the stormwater provisions, so you'd have to meet those. It would be redevelopment. He also, because it's riverfront, obviously is subject to those stormwater provisions too. But I think, like we said, if he wants to repave it, paving that and getting some type of stormwater controls and, management of, contaminants that can come off there is a great thing. But I don't think that we can approve through this request for determination process repaving. I think it's a activity that requires an actual filing with the notice of intent. So I think for the paving aspect, I think he'll have to do that. I think the putting this tank back there, and I think it's a much better improvement for what he has there. I think that I would recommend that we approve that as part of this process, but I think that because of it's a commercial site, he's got riverfront, he's, subject to stormwater provisions, any new impervious surface he puts down has to go through that review, so.
Okay.
However, he's not putting down a different impervious surface than exists at the present time. It is impervious right now.
Right, some of that
Actually, you
asphalt.
just said that it wasn't a minute ago.
No, I said it was impervious.
But it's
said it was-
still,
yeah.
any commercial site that wants to repave it would have to file a notice of intent and would be subject to stormwater provisions, so that's just according to what the regulations from my review say, that's my information for you.
Yeah, I went through it the other day with you, and I think we both came to the same conclusion.
Yeah.
That it's not exempt.
No, and I don't know if, if he has, obviously, if he wants to do the pavement in the spring anyways, that gives him plenty of time, he could file and go through the process, so he can pave it, and I think it would be a great improvement to do that there and have some protective measures in there for that stormwater coming off. And I think that could meet his time frame if he wanted to do that, but he has to go through that process
Okay.
for that.
Yeah, another point that I think you brought up the other day when we were shooting a bull about this, is there other paved areas that he could just set that down now and it would not be any kind of a delay in terms of,
Well, we were planning on putting it there. It's got places where a forklift can lift it right up and move it. So it's easily moved. So what we're gonna do is whatever excavation that had to take place to get rid of the tanks, we were gonna complete that, then put the tank there, and kind of wait till spring because it's gonna settle. I'm sure. You know what I mean. We'll compact it in lifts, but you don't want to pave on that right away if you can avoid it. So we were gonna set it there, wait till the spring, then pave it in the spring. So.
so that actually falls right in with what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah,
So that's the easiest
the
thing.
main
Take
main
care of-
concern was the tank, getting the tank back so he can keep running his business. You know what I mean?
Does anybody have any problem with the tank?
No.
It's a nice tank.
So can we consider that a minor change? I mean, just
I think so. I think it was discussed, it wasn't on the scope before.
all in favor of it? Thanks.
Thank you. Guys.
Yep.
As a minor change.
Yeah, as a minor change without the paving. Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Good night, thank you.
Yep,
You
take
too,
care.
Thanks, Stephen.
What would you like to do next?
Oh, I don't know. Bill's here, we can,
Hey,
Yeah, let's,
Jump
let him-
to-
let's let him wait, I'm just kidding.
Well, it was worth the trip out. What a beautiful night.
Thank you for coming.
pretty decent day, too.
Yeah, sure was. I actually spent some time earlier in the day in storage, in the fields.
Really?
are you gentlemen here for the tree removal? Okay, we'll do you next, sorry. Shore Road, okay. Okay.
Okay.
Rebecca, what would you like to start? Cedar Lake?
Yeah.
Okay.
Paving.
Bill, did you have trouble coming out because of traffic?
Actually, I avoided, I came out 20.
Oh.
20. I guess 39, I guess exit 10 was all fouled up, yeah, yeah. And that's usually the way I go home, is 395. Yeah, Rebecca, before we get started on this,
Yep.
I want to make it very clear that this is a progress print only,
Okay,
and I included that in the email. This is something that essentially is hot off the press from BSC. What we're really focusing on here is the, see if I get this to work. This is, as you recall, I don't know if I had photographed, did we have the last time? Or maybe it was an observation we just made in the field, but there was a broken up old concrete, yeah, there we go, existing concrete swale. It's broken up. We talked about that the last time I was here. So we were looking for alternatives to repair that, and we thought it would be prudent to essentially replace it with a stone swale, which is very common practice. What we do now with for swales and, as we call, pipe end treatments, because you have all that nice void space within the modified rock. There is, if Rebecca, if you could go scroll to the top right, there's a detail of it there. So we're going to essentially try to replace that concrete swale with this configuration. Now, the obstacle that we have out there is the access. The access, we have nice access from the east, but not so much from the west. It looks like the topography is much steeper to the west. We're very close to a residential property, and we'd probably have to take trees down in order to access that area. So I'm looking, actually, I've asked the contractor to look at options for accessing that area, because we'll have to break up remnants of that concrete swale before installing the new stone swale. So we haven't quite worked out those details yet. But if we could kind of jump back to the other issue at hand, which is the removal of the material in the lake, we'd like to attempt to do that. We did submit a Army Corps permit. It's a fairly minor permit because of the amount of work. There's less than 10 cubic yards, BSC estimates. But anyway, I guess the takeaway is we did apply for a Corps permit. So in terms of the Corps, we're good to go forward. Now it's just a matter of getting our contractor out there to remove that material. We'd like to attempt to do that this month. And it's my understanding that the Lake Shed or Watershed Association would like to, or typically starts to
yes,
fill the pond, lake, I keep saying pond
Yep.
and lake interchangeably.
yeah, they gave me some dates today. So the planned date that they would like to start raising the level would be March 1st. So it gives us some time. The last date they would like to start would be March 15th. I mean, if you're going to be doing that work sooner than later, I mean, like I said in my email, I think there's a couple benefits to that. It's lower, there's less
Sure.
protective measures we're going to need in the water to get that sediment out. So
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And that was our original intent.
yeah. Now, are you thinking of phasing these separately then, because you need to do some work for the swale?
I think so. I think we want to go in there now when the water's down, because
Okay.
the work to the swale, even though, once we mobilize, I'd like to be able to do everything, just because we're there and the equipment is there, we paid for the equipment there, but I just don't see that work to the swale going forward right away, and I do want to get in and remove the spoil piles before they raise the water level.
Great.
Okay. And before you guys go out there and remove the piles, I mean, it would be great to have a plan that we can make sure, I mean, we just want to make sure that someone is overseeing that, if that's a wetland specialist that BSC has on board, just to make sure that, the contractor understands the scope of how they're doing it, minimizing any impacts to that area. I mean, just kind of what the steps are, the fence has to come out, trying to minimize vegetation removal, things of that nature, just to make sure that there's some protective measures in place for that work. And then kind of timing with obvious, upcoming weather events too.
Well, I think the piles, I was out there as recent as this afternoon, and the piles are pretty well defined. The material itself it's a gravelly material that was washed out, plus there's stone that was used, that the Pike used to use for armoring, was the small stone that you see out there. They used to use that as ground cover in that area there, because there's so much vegetation and you have so much canopy. They probably at the time, I'm assuming, used the stone in that particular area because of the steepness of the slope and because of the vegetation. So I guess my point is it's pretty well defined, and essentially what we're trying to do is chase back those original contours. So I don't think in terms of doing necessarily doing a soil evaluation. I think it's pretty clear cut.
Right, I don't think that's probably necessary either,
Yeah.
but we just wanna make sure it's not just a contractor over there digging in the lake and causing more damage. So, having a heads up, someone's going out there, who's
well,
kind of overseeing it.
I can certainly send an email, and most likely I'll probably go out there just to check on their mobilization. I think what they'll do is they'll probably place their equipment right on the easterly side of the culvert, and they'll
Right where they were
reach
before.
over. Yeah, there was some question as to whether the contractor. We have two maintenance contractors. One has they're more of a specialized, do more specialized work, and they have larger equipment. So if our primary contractor can't reach from this area to remove that spoil pile, we may use the other contractor. But I think and I'll let the contractor let us know. I think our primary contractor should be able to reach that without much problem from the easterly side. So they'll remove the spoil pile to the west, and then once that's removed, then they'll come back it'll probably be less than a half a day's worth of work, and they'll remove the other pile. And right now we're planning on bringing the material. Again, it's less than 10 cubic yards. The plan is to simply bring it to our depot in Sturbridge on 131.
When you guys are out there, Bill, did anyone walk up the slope here and look at this?
I haven't looked at it recently. It's the time of the year, so that was kind of another reason for postponing that work to the swale
Yeah,
down below, so we can make another assessment of that area up above.
okay.
Could you scroll over just a
Yep.
little bit? What are the approximate dimensions of that swale that do you know? Is it about like 100 feet?
I don't have my scale with me, and I did scale it at work. You can see the cross section is shown. Of course, is shown to the top right, so you get that kind of that general dimension, and that's a 20 scale. So that looks like it's about approximately
120 feet.
120 feet approximately.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the idea is that the water should mostly infiltrate as opposed to making it all the way through that swale and getting to the lake directly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're replacing a concrete swale.
Yeah.
That's how things were when Pike was constructed in the mid-50s.
Right.
Improved drainage was to get it off the road as quickly as possible.
Right. Yeah, no, I think this is great.
Now we've, completely 180 now. Everything, of course, we have these BMPs, and that's very common practice now.
Okay.
Is to use these stone swales for treatment, for
Right.
infiltration, the void space. You remove the sediment.
Right.
So if you drive along, for example, if you drive along 395 in Oxford, which fortunately I didn't today, earlier, you'll see there's a lot of these stone, pipe end treatments in the median.
Yep.
It's constructed very similar to the ones at the top of the hill. But I guess the point is, we use that stone frequently now as both for filtering and for infiltration.
And there's always a geotextile fabric underneath it.
Yeah, there'll be a geotech underneath.
Great.
So,
Right.
last time we were talking about this, we talked about having something at the bottom for the water that does get down there, and you'd like to quote 1,000-year storms. We talked about having some sort of a basin of some sort, and we also talked about maybe having some check dams.
Yeah, we did talk about the check dams. In fact, as I say, I went actually back and forth with this concept with BSC. And again, we haven't finalized it. And that's why I wanted to, again, I'm trying to emphasize this is a progress
part of it would be
plan.
that- yeah, part of it would-
And I think we could certainly incorporate a check dam or two in this design.
Part of it, I
If we
think,
don't, we're in trouble.
I think part of it depends on the size of the stone. I mean, if you're using 8, that you might not need a basin at the bottom, but
Yeah.
check dams would still be
Yeah,
good.
the size of the stone is called out, again, if we look at that
Is
detail.
it, is it the same stuff that you used on the? I think this
Yeah,
works.
it's what we refer to as modified rock, so,
Yeah.
well, similar size. yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
I
can't,
remember.
I see 12
It's-
inches,
Yeah,
but
12-inch.
what's the size of the stone?
yeah.
If we look at that detail, Rebecca, to the top right, I think does it specify half inch?
12
Yeah, the
inch.
base looks like, the base of it will be piece crushed stone. Looks like half inch.
And what do you think? Would you do like a one size of stone?
Well,
Just to keep it from filling, or are you gonna do something like 6-, or what are you gonna do?
Well, I'm thinking the material that's up above is actually it's actually about an 8-inch diameter.
That's even better.
And I think what they're proposing here underneath is, again, is just a bed
Yeah.
for the material, for the modified fill on top.
Does it say 8-, or does it just say 8?
It actually just says 12 inches of modified rock fill. I don't actually see it specified. So we'll make sure we have that information on here.
Okay. All right, I'd like to move on to the Quinnebog.
Okay.
All right?
I just want to add
Okay,
to that,
yeah.
I mean, it's great that these improvements are being proposed and made, but there are those other drainage swales coming in that I think there are concerns associated with those too on the other side
Over
of the
by the
Mass
houses,
Pike.
yeah.
There's a swale coming down, a paved swale that's, looks like it's impacting the bank. The
That's right.
pavement is all broken up and the asphalt's in the river. Across from that is the basin setup, which is great, but that pipe, I went out there during that last storm we had, and it's slightly functioning and water's filling up in the basin, but because I think the pipe's corroded, it's supposed to be filling up when it gets to the top. It's, the pipe's broken, it's getting through, so it's just not functioning appropriately. It'd be great to see that one especially repaired, because that one, I think, could do a really good job with infiltrating water before getting into the stream.
Yeah, why don't we do this? The next time we're out in the field, we'll take a look at that,
Okay, so I'm,
just to make sure we're all on the
Good.
same page.
yeah, and if you want, if you guys come out, you can call me and I can meet you
Yeah.
out there and show you where those are.
But again, I think all of that work, when we've kind of finally demobilized, get out and install that stone swale, that's probably the time to, to look at, to address those issues.
We should probably put that on a site visit too, so we all look at it.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen it, you showed it to me, but, it was a look at this at that time.
All right, so we'll move to the
Move to-
Quinnebog.
The Route 20, Quinnebog River.
So here's just a copy of the enforcement order, if you want to see it, because this was just recently issued late last week. So this came up, I was on a site visit at an adjacent parcel. There's a preliminary proposal plan was out there on that Thursday, the 24th, when we had that big rainstorm. And we were, really just trying to look at that site, but we noticed off to the side of this site, we noticed this down tree. Underneath that is a discharge pipe that comes from Route 20. So it's actually similar to the other one. It's undermined, probably from salt, corroded. Took out this tree and a good portion of the bank. This is a really steep bank that goes down to the Quinnebog here. And you can't see that well, but you can see the pipe right there. There's a better photo. This is the pipe, which, obviously was exposed, around here at some point probably. But really, took this big tree down, and a lot of the sediment has washed out here. I mean, some of the sediment you see down here, is a result of this. It's probably a result of sediment from the pipe for however many years it's been there, but. So I noticed this, we went out, took a look at it at our last site visits from the road. At that time determined to issue an enforcement order, as it's directly discharging. So Bill, you guys went out there today and looked at it?
I was out there today. A gentleman from our maintenance section was out there yesterday. Matt Farron and I went out there as well today. And I mentioned to Rebecca earlier in the day, I think we're going to need to do a little bit more fact-finding. I'm not convinced that's necessarily our pipe. And again, I've got to do a little bit more research. And there's a couple of reasons.
We found your DNA and your fingerprints all over.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. See, I'm not really quite clear on the status of the ownership. I didn't have time to investigate that this afternoon. I had actually a problem with our website today, so I couldn't track down our survey plans for this evening. But I'm not, Rebecca, maybe you can help me with this. You provided me with an assessor's plan, and it shows these other parcels, and they appear to be privately owned, I say, off a state highway property.
Oh, that's not the one I want. Right, so that's private property there. So the pipe actually comes out on this property, which is owned by the Blackington LLC here. But it's the pipe comes out from about here. So, and I have that plan. It was right across from School Street there. So it was right about here, but I was just trying to find. It's not the right plan. I had emailed you a plan that I had from that.
From Burton?
Yeah.
Engineering? Yeah, I have.
It's not one of these. I have to do some digging here.
Would the Burton plan be part of the NOI for 9 Holland?
No, it is, well, yes, it's part of the orders of conditions, so it's in my permit folder for that. Nine, 3, 8. All right, well, it might take me a minute to find that, but the plan does show the pipe comes from the catch basin on Route 20. So that's what we were using when I looked that up more. So even when we were out there, he's like, oh, our property line, that pipe's not on our property. So I went back to that plan where I have it here. I don't remember what the permit number is for the old 9 Holland Road one, but.
So you want to take some more time to take a look at that?
And the other part of that too, and what does happen, what frequently happens with the budding properties, and just to take a step back, that section Route 20, again, I don't have the original survey information, so I can't be very specific on the date, but I think that section of Route 20 was built many years ago, and that metal pipe, and in fact it's the same type of construction that we have on the Pike, which is that corrugated metal pipe. And that material was commonly used in the 50s. And that section of Route 20 is very, very old, certainly constructed prior to the 50s. So I'm thinking that whoever owned that abutting property at that time, and it's speculation on my part at this juncture, but that was probably put in by whoever owned the abutting property at the time so they could develop the property. So it may have.
You mean across the street?
It may have connected to our system.
You've
without-
seen the
with-
property, right? You know that it's almost not developable, that property that you're talking about. It's steep.
Oh, yeah, but there's like a shelf. If you walk through that area, running parallel with 20, it's kind of flat before obviously the steep embankment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and there's also some sort of a foundation there that almost looks like it maybe at one time had some sort of a above-ground tank. There's a concrete structure out there.
Are you
Very-
talking about this,
I don't know what you're
this
talking about the
property?
same.
with the old mill building?
No, I think they may be, are they showing it?
So this is where the pipe is.
No, why don't
This
we,
is the property line right here. This is the old mill building with the
Right.
driveway comes down. There's a-
Right, but there's some.
Let's let him
where's-
catch it. Let's
no,
let him-
Mr. Chairman, it's all speculation,
Right,
so why don't we
exactly.
just wait?
Yeah,
Yeah, we're gonna wait.
okay.
Well, you and Becky can, you can take a
Arm
look
wrestling
at
should
it.
be done in the office, not at the meeting.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
Now, but you guys looked at it. I mean, obviously you need to figure out if it's your pipe, but I mean, it looks like it's coming from the road to another catch basin. I don't know if, there's an issue that someone else's catch basin or not, but, can anything be put in place for the time being, or,
Well, let
I
me
think
see,
the
well,
damage is done.
Actually, the location is, I don't know, they show like arrows of where the washout is. Would be to the west, if you could go to the west.
Yeah, see, that's what if you're talking about this parcel up here, that's a different,
This is a
Yeah,
different,
but where the actual scour hole is to the west of that drain line that you're showing there. There's the print that I have says the washout area. And you'll see there's a gate. Maybe it's not showing, it's not
well, no,
showing.
this is way down,
Yeah.
or upstream. This
No,
is way
it's-
upstream.
That's another property that we
Yeah.
had an
No, let me-
enforcement
here,
order.
let me show you.
that's Holland.
I thought it was the same plan, but if you look at the plan here, there's arrows here which show where this washout area is. And the drain line that you're looking at here is somewhere over here.
Right,
Yeah.
So it's-
exactly.
It's a different location.
Different location.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there are, if you look, there's these concrete structures there. Again, they look like, it looks like something that's supported like an above-ground tank. And that's very close to where this access driveway is.
Right, but that's not what we're talking about. That's not the spot we're talking about.
Becky has a
It's
picture.
it's further east.
Washout, where the tree fell. and
Yeah.
It's right on that line. There's
Yeah.
the pipe.
So why don't you
Let me do some homework.
do some homework
Yeah.
and come back to
Yeah,
that,
I'll chat with you.
Yeah. all right? Any other questions for him? No. Thanks, Bill.
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming in.
You're welcome.
We have a tree removal, which should be pretty quick, if you guys wanna come on up. Yep, and just introduce yourself. It's recorded, so you just gotta, for the folks at home.
We hear well, but the people watching TV want to hear you. Welcome.
Hi, thanks. I'm Andrew Milne, and I'm John Milne's son.
I can tell that.
All right.
All right. So we have two requests in front of us, one for 123, one for 121, which are the property owners. Andrew filled out the request for the property owner at 121. Do you want to just go over what you're asking to do and?
Yeah, sure.
Why?
So for 121 Shore Road, the large white pine on the right side of the house near the deck, It's,
This one.
yeah, it's right there. It's huge. It's probably a 30-inch white pine. Now, it's a healthy tree, and that's pretty much the issue that we have. It's has an aggressive surface root problem that's heaving the deck, and you said possibly the foundation, right?
My concern is it's so close to the house. I'm afraid it's gonna lift the foundation and crack the slab that it's sitting on. Thing's getting huge.
Did you look at these, Becky?
I did. I went out yesterday, so this came in last week. So I took pictures of it, which I can show you.
Yeah, show us a picture of it then.
So, yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to see that, just which
I
one.
can see that right there.
All right, well, if you want it, if someone else wants it and they can't see it.
The roof is what, 2 years old, new roof?
Yeah, brand new roof.
And the old roof had, the damage was all underneath that white
Get a
pine.
bunch of them. Eddie didn't want paper.
Looking to preserve the new roof.
All right,
So which tree are we talking about here?
this
That
one
one.
right here,
That one.
and I have a closer one. So this is the 30-inch pine that they'd like to remove. The rest of the pines, they'd like to do some thinning.
Yeah, I pruned a lot of those trees probably like 8 years ago, so they need some light crown raising, some dead wooding. We've made a lot of efforts to preserve all the other trees, and we've planted upwards of 20 trees and shrubs on the property, kind of
Nice.
thinking that we're gonna take that tree down someday, maybe being a little preemptive to replace it or something. There's a nice big leaf dogwood that you can't, just out of the picture there. That's getting to be like 20 feet tall now, so some of the stuff that we put in is getting decent size, so we'd like to take that big one down to protect the house and the deck. They've had to make modifications to the deck to accommodate those aggressive surface roots that are going underneath the building.
You can see how close it is to the building on that corner.
Bottom line is it's poor location and it's poor species. Eastern white pine being really susceptible to storm damage, lightning, etc. We're worried about maybe a wet, heavy snow breaking some of those limbs that are directly over the roof. And to prune it to prevent that would make it look like a power line went by it. So I think the answer is to take the tree down.
You take a reasonable looking piece of property and turn it into, if you pruned it.
Yeah, it would make it look like aspen. went
Actually, I
through.
think this is pretty simple. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the tree removal
I'll second
of that one tree.
Okay. All in
And
favor?
We normally have a requirement that we ask for 2 to 1, but in my motion, I'm only gonna move that we have that tree removed. Because you guys have already done a significant amount of planting on the property, so the 2 for 1 is not necessary.
Great.
All right,
Now
all
I
in
need a
favor?
second.
Oh, you need a second? Well,
Yeah.
well, we're just a,
Now, any
That was a long motion.
just consensus.
questions on like the, a description of what the pruning on the other trees would be?
Yeah, I would
Just
like
a-
to hear that.
Well, let's do this first and then do that second.
Yeah, it's two separate things.
That way we get rid of that one
Yeah,
big guy.
okay. All right,
Let's vote.
all in favor? Good,
Okay.
thanks.
One down.
All right, so actually this picture can show some of what I wanted to. If you look towards the lake.
You, Andrew, you get a pointer up there
Oh.
too, if you wanna use it, that could.
Oh, yeah, all right. So a couple of these lower branches on the pines, very light crown raising. And there's some deadwood, there's some hangers left over from that 2012 October storm. The tree being blocked by the big one, that has a support cable, and so does the big scarlet oak in the front yard. And then there's a white oak around here,
I think I have a picture of that one too.
and that's encroaching on the neighbor's property quite a bit, so I'd like to take some of those lower limbs off. So pretty light general maintenance pruning on the rest of the property, nothing too major. I have some pretty rare trees planted under those pines, and they're not getting any sunlight either, so I'd like to open things up so some of those can start growing a little better. So probably maybe no more than 3 or 4 bottom limbs off each one of those trees on the lake. And that would open up a little better view for the upper deck for us too.
It also looks like most of the pruning you're suggesting is with white pine,
Yeah,
which makes really good sense, because it's gonna self-prune anyway.
right.
Yeah, the bottom branch is gonna die eventually
or break.
Anybody have a problem with it?
I have no problem.
I move that we agree with the pruning
Fine.
of that group of trees.
Awesome.
Now,
You're all set.
we usually
All
don't,
right.
there's one more, but we usually don't, allow for, removal of the stump or the roots. I know you
Yep.
talked about potentially down the road doing a deck replacement. When you do that, you obviously have to file for the deck, and at that time, if something roots need to be cut, we can do it through that. Were you
Sure.
planning on doing anything at this time with the roots, or are you fine?
You think we could build over it when you extend the deck? If we cut it, flush it?
Yeah, you could flush it, yeah.
And if we can't, I'll apply for a permit to grind it?
Well, you're gonna apply for the.
You gotta apply for the deck anyways.
When you do, just say
Yeah.
you're gonna take out the stump.
Oh, all right, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great, that's
All right.
good information,
Grind
thank
it
you.
down to the level.
Actually, it pretty much ruined that deck. It lifted up and cracked it.
You guys have been trashing white pine, I'm not with you on that.
Hey, I love a white pine if it's at least 200 feet away from any structure.
Exactly. All
So we
right.
also have a request for the neighbor's property here. We have these two, one dead, one declining spruce up front
Yeah.
that are in the power lines too. So they're asking to take those two down as well. In the
Yeah, I
back
don't
of
think
the-
any amount of fertilizer can bring back that one on the left.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, it looks pretty sad.
There's a lot of trees between the house and the lake on this property
Okay.
too, which is really nice, so.
Okay.
There are a lot of trees,
Yes, yep.
so again, you're asking to waive the 2-for-1?
They did talk about putting shrubs there, which there are some shrubs.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I don't think you could put any trees in the front. There's a lot of, it's fully covered with trees in the front, which is great.
Well, the thought
And
was
then-
too, if we put trees in that same spot, they're gonna get hacked by the utility like those blue spruce did.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
instead of trees, what if we ask for replacement shrubs,
Absolutely.
especially berry-bearing shrubs, so that we'd be encouraging wildlife?
Yeah,
Sapphire berry,
yeah.
that's my new favorite tree.
Is it
Put
really?
some of those in. Sweet leaf, otherwise known as. I plan on putting some of those in there too.
Sweet leaf is slow grower, though.
It is.
That's good.
Yeah, it will never reach those power lines and it looks nice.
Well, not in your lifetime.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Never mind mine.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, you guys are all set then.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks for
Thank
coming
Great to
in.
meet you all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for coming in.
And,
Good to see
you
you.
know.
Good to see stewards of the lake.
I'll email you those letters,
All right.
so you'll have those, okay?
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
guys, take care.
Have a great night.
Thanks, you too. Take care.
Where to?
Don, you didn't have anything else, right? You just,
No, I didn't know if you needed to discuss the enforcement order on the, any further.
no?
No.
I think we're good.
No, we're
Yeah,
all
I
set
think
on
that,
that,
yeah,
yeah.
kind of blended those two together. I didn't know if you were just hanging out for the fun of it or not, no.
Waiting for the,
Sorry about
the
that.
desserts to come out.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank
I'll,
you.
I'll be in
Take
touch
care.
soon.
All right, I'm gonna talk with Jonathan in the morning anyway.
Okay.
But, he asked me to send him everybody's email because
Okay.
he said his
Lost
files
everything.
were corrupted, so
Okay.
I'll follow up with that as well.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you. Hi, Liz. How are ya? Good, good. You are up. Liz, have you met all of the commissioners?
Yeah. Met me.
I think we've
It
met
might
some
have
time.
been new since I was here last, yeah, but I recognize everybody else. It's been a little while since I've been here, obviously, so I'm just here again from Mass Wildlife. I'm the Conservation Restriction Stewardship Coordinator, and I've been with the agency 3.5 years now. And we're just trying to make sure that our landowner relations are really followed through on. It's a relationship in good faith that these conservation restrictions are, and we just want to make sure that as we do our monitoring, as I contact Rebecca, that I'm also including you in the conversation about things that are happening. So there were, from my perspective, 4 questions I had tonight, or issues concerns that I wanted to share with you. And then I also wanted to hear from you all about your perspective of the property and what the agency can be doing to help you steward the land. My first question was about forest management, and if there were any thoughts on carrying out some of the plans that are in the forest management plan. It's not a requirement that you do any forest management practices, but we're just curious to hear what the commission is thinking about. It also helps me kind of block out time to make sure that I can review plans and give you feedback to the best of my ability. I wanted to find out more about some of the remaining structures. The last site walk that Rebecca and I were on, we noted some of the structures left over and if there were any plans to work on that. I wanted to check in on that invasive species work that came up with a scout and make sure that you have everything that you need to get that rolling. And then there were some resource concerns that I had about some of the trails. So I don't know where you want to start, but I just wanted to have a conversation with you.
Start with number one.
All right.
All right,
Yes.
forest management.
Yes, and that was actually the first thing I had on my list too. So,
Excellent.
so we've actually discussed this at our last meeting. So I did some research, went through all the files in the office because there was a little bit of confusion for myself with the stewardship plans. There was multiple forest cutting plans. So I kind of went through all of that and we conversed a little bit
Right.
after that. So I went through all of that and, found that we do have a current stewardship plan that was approved by DCR and Fish and Wildlife. Everyone's on board with that one. And the next step would be a forest cutting plan. So we
Right.
did at our last meeting, I did talk to the commissioners about wanting to try to move forward with that, start that process and reach out to different foresters to work on developing a plan.
Okay.
I actually talked to Chris Capone at DCR a little bit too and picked his brain.
He's a
about-
service forester in the
Yes,
area.
in our area, yep, about, we usually see it on the other side of things, but how, being the landowner and what's the best way to move forward with approaching people. So we did have a conversation, I asked the commissioners, something I'd like to move forward with this year, working on proposals, from foresters, getting a couple quotes from people moving forward. I'd like to work with Fish and Wildlife and work with your foresters. I think it'd be beneficial to develop a plan that everybody's on board with, so that way we get it done right the first time.
Sure.
Well,
So
we're thinking about the same area for the forest cutting plan as we had before.
Right, so
stand
that,
11 on the
Yeah.
western.
yep, the one up there, yeah.
So that's really great. Since I've started, we've added in our wildlife section a forest habitat biologist who has a background in forestry, who is available to consult with private landowners on their work. And I will certainly have him get in touch with you. His name's Patrick Conlon.
Okay.
Good.
Liz, too, with like the habitat management grants you guys do now too, do you think the forestry could fall under that?
Yes.
Okay,
It would require creating, so all of these projects, these applications come in and they're ranked based on what species would benefit, if there are species of conservation concern that would benefit, if there are species that are important game species that have habitat that are declining. Those are all different factors,
Okay.
among others, that get ranked based on the work. And one of the prime goals our agency has is to try and encourage the amount of young forest habitat on the landscape. Since farming has gone by the wayside, all of our pine trees, they're all getting really big, and all of our oak trees are getting very large, and our forests have grown and are fully mature, and there are very few young forests because we have suppressed fire on the landscape. We don't have many natural disturbances. And so a lot of species that are dependent on young forests are in significant decline, not only in Massachusetts, but across the Northeast and North America. So if there are plans to manage forests for that type of habitat, that's the kind of thing that the grant program is aimed at.
Are you suggesting some areas that might be clear-cut? For
So,
example, the 10-acre site for
correct.
experimental purposes?
Yeah, a patch cut would be fantastic.
Because I know Quabbin did that about 5 or 6 years ago, and you're starting to see the growth now. So that would be acceptable, because we thought about doing that with a previous forest cutting plan
Yeah.
on lead mine.
Yeah. How long ago was that?
6 years ago, 8 years ago.
Yeah, in that range.
We were frowned upon because of the clear-cut nature of the cut.
Uh-huh. Well-
But that was only part of the whole forest cutting plan.
Well, see, and a lot of it depends on what the rationale for the work is too. So if the goal is to try and create wildlife habitat, there are certain ways to try and go about
We
it.
could put the
so-
right wording to it.
Sure.
Well, that was the
Yeah.
goal. We may not have had the right wording, but
Yeah,
that
that's
was
what
the
I mean.
goal.
You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. And also because of the way the conservation restriction is worded, there are certain things that have to be into place for it to all work, right? It can't just be one piece of it.
Right.
It has to be
Right.
put together,
Yeah.
so it's complicated.
I think it's great though if we can work with Patrick and maybe he can help develop this plan.
That's right.
And that way it meets everybody's needs, so I think that would be
Right.
good.
The other thing that we'd need to make sure is that it's consistent with the forest management plan.
Right.
Okay.
So that, one of the things that we're really asking our landowners to do is to think about their goals and objectives and what they would like to do with their lands, and that's how you write your forest management plans. And then the cutting plan is really where the rubber meets the road. This is what you're actually gonna do. This is what you said you're gonna do, but this is what you're actually gonna do. So when those two things meet, you get really good forest management on the landscape. When you're changing your mind, and forestry is as much a science as it is an art, and things change, and there's a big economic part of it. And when economics drive a lot of forestry practices and management plans get revised, because you can revise and amend a management plan, sometimes the outcomes are a little different than if you hadn't made those changes for economic purposes. Completely understanding that economics needs to be a driving factor, but it just all needs to be weighed, and it's the long-term forest health, the long-term health of wildlife and wildlife habitat that we're most concerned about.
That's one of the reasons we need to have forest cutting plans, multiple of them in that forest. Do you know when the last forest cutting plan was done?
No. When was the last harvest?
1992 to 1993, the University of Connecticut
Uh-huh.
sponsored one.
Wow,
And since then, there's been nothing.
yeah.
Now, in terms of the viability of the trees, you can see what's happening in there. The young trees are toothpicks
Right,
because they're being completely shaded
They're
out
over-
by
right.
everybody else.
right.
There is so much canopy that even animals are having trouble. So we really need to get these forest cutting plans going.
Yeah, and it's tricky because forestry is, can be perceived negatively by a lot of members of the public. What do you mean you're going out and cutting trees, and you're cutting a lot of trees in some areas? So there's an educational component to it as well.
Yep.
So next, structures.
Yeah.
So we haven't done anything with those structures, but what we have done, because we have other properties, is kind of prioritize them. So we actually, because of the asbestos
Sure.
and the cost of getting them removed, we had to go to a special town meeting. We got funding from the town for the removal of one on another property. So we're in the process of getting that done. So that was kind of first, and then we need to have, so we had the inspections done, we need to have someone go out and give us a quote, which is the hard part,
Right.
from these companies for what it would cost to take the asbestos out of those structures.
Yeah.
So that, my plan would be to ask to get those quotes, and then, at the next town meeting, ask for the funding for the removal of them, so we can do it in the next fiscal year. So,
Great.
kind of working on planning that.
Pecking away at it.
I thought what you were gonna ask us was when we're gonna remove the toilet bowl from up on top of the hill.
I don't think I've found that yet. I'll have to, it's like a geocache, right?
We're gonna leave it there.
I think we walked by, there's like those three
Did
little
we?
structures, there's one in
Oh,
there,
oh,
it's
okay.
in there, I
Okay.
think, I don't know.
right.
Maybe someone
We
already
did
took it
see
as a
that.
souvenir, I don't
Oh,
know, I didn't
geez.
check last time, but.
Probably in some college dorm.
Oh, goodness.
The Eagle Scout project,
Yeah.
I think he decided to kind of put it on hold till spring, so I haven't heard from him.
Okay.
But I did get the licensed herbicide applicator person, on
great.
Joe. Joe Kowalski said he'd assist with that, so I got him on board and told the Eagle Scout, gave him that information so he
Okay.
can help with that and the final, coordination of getting that done. So it's my understanding he's still planning on doing it. I'm not sure where he is with the Eagle Scout process of his approvals. He might be working on that and then coming back, but I haven't heard from him since before the holidays, so.
Okay.
But in terms of invasives, we ought to add a positive note too. When the dam removal team decided to organize enough so that they could actually get out and start doing some work, about 6 months before they started the removal work, they sent in their experts to take care of some of the invasive species that we had in the form of, not cat nine tails, but its sister,
Phragmites?
Phragmites.
Uh-huh.
Off the normal site, but on the pathway from the, where the parking lot is at Lead Mine.
Yeah.
The new parking lot.
Yes.
On that roadway, on the right-hand side, there was about 3/4 of an acre to an acre and a half of Phragmites that was setting in and was spreading.
Yeah.
About 2.5 to 3 years ago, they did the cut, they did the injection.
Right.
They came back about 6 or 8 months later, right at the early spring. They did a second injection on those that were still alive. As of this past summer,
Nothing. Oh, that's great.
so we have been working on the invasive part of the program.
Terrific.
But what that boy is going to be attempting is Russian olive or autumn olive.
The autumn olive and,
Field is,
Is there barberry? There's something
it's
else.
there's
and
also Japanese knotweed that's coming up on the
Oh.
side hill.
is there bittersweet in the field too?
Oh,
Maybe it was bittersweet. There was autumn olive and something else. Maybe
Yeah.
it was bittersweet. I thought it was the barberry, but it
you
might
know
have
a
been the
place where there
bittersweet.
isn't any bittersweet? That's a little bit wild. No. New York City, maybe.
Right. Under the
Yeah, and
pond.
invasive species management was something that was called out on on our stewardship plan. There was a couple areas that were identified, and right, I think the Hammett Brook Restoration Project, they did key in on some of that, which was great. But I think there are other opportunities that we can look at down the road, and that was another thing we talked about, the potentially, the habitat grants through you guys, maybe
Right.
for something like that. So it's something that, I think the last meeting I mentioned the grant opportunities too that we'd like to look into. It's just a matter of getting
Yeah.
to that.
And just like the dam restoration project did a pre-treatment for invasives so that you don't spread things unintentionally, a lot of the forest management practices do the same things. You go in, you hit the invasives, and then you can go and do your work without a lot of fear of things spreading unintentionally. Yeah. And then the last time that Rebecca and I went out for a site walk in December, we took some photographs, and I brought a couple of copies with me. I hadn't thought, I love how you've got this display up here for everybody to see, of a couple of places where the trail is crossing through some wetlands, and there are boards that have been placed in the wetlands or rocks that have been placed in the wetlands. That was just a concern. I know that there's a really great, enthusiastic, capable group of trail enthusiast here, and wondered if they might be able to work on improving some of those resource impacts. And then there was also a trail that I identified separately from Rebecca, but I did show it to her, that goes up and over kind of an unusual habitat. It's called a circumneutral rock outcrop. So the soils there, because of the underlying bedrock, are a little sweeter. So you get a little bit different plant community on it. And I think what's probably happened is that there was a wildlife trail that went up and over the ridge, and then hikers find it or bikers find it, and it becomes more and more developed over time. And it's the kind of thing that I want to try to keep from becoming developed in that way. It's nothing that's on any of the recreational trail master plans. It's not anything that anybody has identified saying, oh, we want a trail here, but it's starting to become a trail. And because of the sensitive habitat, I just wanted to see if we might be able to work to find a way to keep it from becoming.
We may have a problem.
Oh,
Hang on.
okay.
Have you given her the booklet for each one of the trails in town?
This booklet?
Which would include the newest of
The
the
loop out of
trails.
the back of the parking lot you're talking
Yeah.
about? Yeah.
Nope, the only trails that are going on the new one are the ones down by Arbutus Park, those two, the smaller ones right
Right.
there. There's no trails.
Where is this trail?
So here, I made some.
Yeah, I have that,
And when you say it's beginning to be developed, you're talking about trails.
Well, when I say it's beginning to be used more frequently.
Yeah.
It's not signed, it's not marked, but you can see it's a trail.
Lead mine? It may be because the signage hasn't come in yet.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, there's
But so this.
new trails that Trails did with the, was it, whatever that conservation organization is.
And
Those ones are GPS, will be on the new trail map, and there's a connecting one. That trail that's on the ridge is not, so this is the
Right.
current one.
Yeah.
And then, right, we have the one here that you guys know about, and there's another one here, and there's a
Yeah, it's
connection.
not, it's not.
It isn't?
No.
No, it's, and let's see.
I have it somewhere too.
Where's the parking lot?
It's
The
here,
parking lot's over here.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's up here,
It's
and it
not.
comes up through here,
Right.
yeah.
See, I still
right
don't,
here.
if there's, I don't know who has these trail data, but if I
I
had
have
these,
them.
oh, do you? Could you send them to me?
Yep.
Because then I could make you a map that
Yep.
instead
Yeah.
of,
Yeah, that would be good.
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, overlay it.
Exactly.
I'm the Trails liaison for this committee, that's why I've been speaking up.
Oh,
And I need to bring them whatever information we
Okay.
have. But we did create a new trail last year, which is a single-track trail. It is one of the most difficult trails that has been created, but it was created for that purpose.
right.
So that you can have a variety of different styles of trails. And it sounded from your description as though that's what you were starting to converse about. And I wasn't joking, we do have the signage ordered for it, if it's the same place.
Okay,
It is, from what she pointed out,
okay,
it's a different place.
yeah.
Okay, so once Becky gets you that information and you look at it, Becky and I will talk about it so that I can bring it to the
Oh,
Trails Committee.
fantastic.
Yeah, so the ridge trail comes up
That
along
way, yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't have anything with that trail.
Yeah.
So, right, Liz and I went out and along 7 ridges here, and I talked to Tom Chamberlain about it. There are a couple areas that, you know, there's resource areas there, and there's impacts, there's bridges
Yep.
that go over, some other trails that kind of shoot off. So after Liz and I went out and kind of walked that area, I've been talking to Tom Chamberlain a little bit, and actually was supposed to go to one of their meetings, in late fall, which we got canceled, and I couldn't go to the other one. So I'm actually going to their meeting on Thursday night, to kind of talk about trails and stuff there too. But one of the things we're looking to do is to GPS all the trails out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually, we were trying to get our Trimble up for them to use, which wasn't working. So we actually are starting to use the iPad with ArcGIS Online.
Yep.
So we just finally got that set up through Ty and Bond and have that ready where trails, there's a volunteer that was gonna go out and kind of GPS all those trails out there. So we can look at what's out there. So that's the next step. We need to get someone out there and do that now that it's available, so.
Yeah, because you look at these trails maps, and you know there's more out there on the landscape than any of these maps show. Yeah, and in a lot of instances, you can go to, you know, people have their handheld devices, and, you know, after their run or their ride, they can sync with the web and show everybody, you know, these are all the trails that I've been on. So there's lots of different places where you can find out more and more about trails, so.
Well,
Yeah.
that's also a problem that the Trails Committee has been addressing, is that a lot of the mountain bike riders don't think that the trails that have been created are tough enough, so they take off. But they like where they took off to, so week after week or month after month, they go back to the same one because of its difficulty or because of its
Right.
challenge, and it becomes a trail.
Yes, and that's my concern about this particular one because of the sensitive habitat. And I brought some information about the circumneutral.
Well, we've even gone, or they have even gone to the extreme of taking very large boulders and using the excavator to bring the boulders over and block these trails off,
To block them. Oh,
so that the mountain bikers will try to stay on the trails that we've marked as
Oh, I
being
see.
acceptable.
right. Yep.
These things also called a glade?
Oh, I don't,
It looks, the picture, I mean, that
Yeah,
might be a
I'm not
Midwest southern
yeah, it could
thing,
be, yeah,
but that
Yeah.
looks like a glade.
yeah.
I was looking for that word
So-
in here.
So those were all the things that I wanted to share with you. Is there anything? Yeah,
When are you gonna connect the two rivers?
the 2 rivers.
Hammett Brook and the Quinnebog?
Oh,
They're not connected.
I don't, so a
Why
lot,
in God's name would you come in and take all the dams out and not connect them? That is a stupid thing to do. That's like building a house and not having a front door.
Actually, the difficulty is that the Department of Transportation,
Well, the difficulty is that they
Army
came
Corps?
in, sold us a bill of goods, and you're not gonna do the brook trout any good at all.
If they can't get to
The
the.
fingerling are gonna drop 6 feet into the Quinnebog, and they're never gonna be seen again.
So I'm not familiar with the details on that project, but I know.
Never completed.
the outflow drainage, which goes under Old Sturbridge Village Road,
Yeah.
drops into the Quinnebog with a severe drop.
6 feet.
The drop is severe enough so that when the Department of Transportation was doing some of their measurements, they actually measured the scour hole at the
Yes.
bottom. It's 12 feet deep. There's no place on the Quinnebog that's 12 feet deep.
And it was, a part of the original plan was to connect them,
Now,
and they backed out on it.
in
Yeah, it
theory,
was
they're
so
supposed to
the-
have the funding in 2020 to do that, but unless someone is following up with it,
All right, I'm
you
glad
know
you
how
asked
those
that
budgetary
question.
items sort of, it's amazing to me how the eraser gets used.
And how projects that need to take a long time, you forget to follow through to get to that end goal.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yes, ma'am.
yep. I will ask.
Thank you
I-
for bringing that up, Mr. Goodwin.
But that's,
I wasn't aware of any, I mean, I knew about the dam restoration project, but the entirety of it I was not aware of, but.
it's really a
I-
breach, it's really a breach of contract, what they did. They just blew us off.
I mean, the idea was that the,
You know, they got in here, we voted as a town to remove the dams. You know,
In one of our meetings, when they came forward with their 100% engineering plan, which, by the way, we had not seen the 75% plan yet, but they came in and they said, oh, it was the 90% plan
Yeah.
that they came in with. They said, by the way, we have to take this particular portion off the board because we find that it's way too expensive. So I suggested to them that they go through a serious training program. And they said, what kind of training? And I said, you have to train the trout to be able to jump that high to get back in the pipe.
but
Because there is a sincere gap. Ed's not kidding.
Yeah. I've never seen it myself, but that's certainly a situation that,
The
well, I'll take you
excuse-
down there now if you wanna go.
next time I'm out, I'll go check,
Yeah.
I'd go take a
Becky will
look.
show it to you.
Yeah.
The excuse for taking the dams down was that it was supposed to be a trout reclamation project.
Yeah.
Trouts Unlimited was even part
Yeah,
of.
I was gonna ask, were they partnered to it?
Yes, they
Yeah.
were partners in this,
Huh.
and lo and behold, jump,
Yeah.
trout, jump.
Well, I don't have any answers or
there were-
suggestions for you about it, but maybe the next time we talk, I'll know a little bit more about the
And there were
backstory.
brookies in there.
Yeah.
Actually, there are brookies in fingerlings and a lot of the little streams that go into the you'll see them at the edge of the Quinnebog going back and forth
Nice.
from wherever it is they flow out of, but you don't see them anywhere else.
Oh, that's really too bad.
Quinnebog is in tough shape.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it was a good idea at the outset, huh? But it just, they didn't get to the finish
Well,
line.
it just, yeah, it's like didn't put
Yeah.
any
Not
wheels
yet.
on the car.
Not yet, it's coming.
No, that's not one of those things that, they're onto their job is to count the number of dams that they remove. They're not looking for quality of river afterwards.
Did you have any suggestions as to what you might like to see?
Me?
On lead mine?
On lead mine?
Yeah. I mean, you people are in charge of the CR, so you go out there and look, you might have some suggestions.
So I actually think of, we're in charge of the CR. It's a partnership. We work together on it. Not so much that either one of us is that much in charge, right? That's how I think of it.
Right, but we don't do the review.
Right. So the concerns about the trails that I brought up, just your ideas about the forestry, what kind of use the property seems to be getting, if the townspeople are really enjoying it. I'm curious to know about that. Are you thinking about specific management recommendations for the property?
Or suggestions. For example, what kind of use we're getting. We just were able to get the town meeting to approve
the monies for, and we've already expended them, so that we'll be setting up counters, automatic counters, at the parking lots of two of our trails, and the first one, not two of our trails, two of our sites.
Yep.
And one of them is going to be lead mine right at the very beginning, so that we get some counts.
Nice.
One of the things that has been, I don't know if it's amazing or just curious to us, we conducted a site visit 3 years ago to introduce people to the properties in depth, and 50 people showed up for the walk.
That's nice.
When we did the sign-in sheets at the end, we realized, holy smokes, there were 32 people from Connecticut.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh, well, you are pretty close to the border, huh?
Yeah, but it shows that
Yeah.
Union, Connecticut, for example, has no trails, and they're one of the abutters.
Ah.
Now, we also found that a lot of people in the town of Sturbridge don't even know where lead mine is.
No.
There's the Nipmuc State Forest, which is right there.
Yeah.
Next town down, but the other thing you'll see is if you go on them, you'll see tons of dog walkers.
Oh, yeah.
It's not as much a fishing game area as I would like. I don't have a dog. But there's a lot of that. And most of them are on leashes, but
Yeah, when I go out onto properties, doesn't matter where I am in the state, and it's, you know, it's my job, so I'm out there during work hours.
Yeah.
And most of the people that I see, because on weekends you'll see everybody, and then,
Yeah.
you know, at the end of the day in the summer, you'll see everybody. But during the day, it's dog walkers and mountain bikers. Those are the
Yeah.
only people that I really ever see out in
Yeah.
the woods. And maybe you're aware, I don't know, that Mass Wildlife, just as of, I think it was January 10th, instituted a new policy on dogs on wildlife management areas, because it was becoming a problem
Yep.
on our wildlife management areas. People,
they're not allowed, or what?
they're allowed,
Yeah.
but they need to be on leash
Right.
unless you have a hunting
Hunting.
license and you're hunting or training your dogs for hunting.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have signage at all
That's a
of our
good-
sites now
Good change.
that indicates that they must be leashed, even though we do not have a leash law in Sturbridge.
Yes, we do.
We do not have a leash law. We
Yes,
have
we
a
do.
law that says the dog must be within your restraint. Does not say it has to be on a leash.
It's called the leash law.
I'm thinking of somebody walking around with their chihuahua in a box,
Yeah, you know.
restrained.
A stroller, no.
I can see you with your dog in your arms, Becky, walking
Anyway,
around.
thank you for answering the question.
Or-
Catch that dog.
Well, again, if you ever have any questions or ideas, contact me or have Rebecca contact me, and we'll keep doing some good work out here.
If you can find out when they're gonna finish
I'll ask some
When they're gonna
questions about
finish
the
it.
dam.
yeah.
And you are gonna send us the information so that we can get exactly what the location of that trail is?
So if Rebecca sends, I could send you my data, or you could send me, I think I sent
Think
you.
you sent-
I think I
Yeah.
did send it.
Yeah.
So you can, but I'll resend it if you want. Terrific. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for
Thank you.
coming out.
Well, thanks for taking the ambush in good spirits. What's next?
Old business?
Old business, what are you gonna do here? Gotta-
Well, we still have tree removals. We have a special use permit.
Well,
We
let's
have
go. What do you wanna
signatures.
do?
Do you want to do approval of minutes? We'll start at the top and
All right?
go down
Sure.
here.
There's one very small modification I'd like to make to the minutes.
Okay, let me grab them because
I don't know.
we do not have Ashley, so.
Yeah, we let her leave.
Thank you, Liz. I'll be in touch soon.
Under your notes, about 5 of your notes down, it says Plimpton.
Huh?
You know the section that says your notes?
Who's been telling you about
That's how she summarizes it. It's under Becky's notes. Keep going. Here.
Any scat or prints or just like?
Oh, agent notes at the update at the end.
Tear those two apart, would you please? Yep. Just my fingers that don't work.
There we go, agent's notes. Right here where it says, Plimpton looking to do some parking expansion.
Yeah.
Well, Plimpton's dead.
Oh, no,
What we should be saying is the Plimpton property, or we are looking to the Plimpton property, or the right word for the Plimpton,
okay, I can change the wording of that,
just
yeah.
so
I think
that somebody
they're just
doesn't think there is a
Yeah.
Plimpton.
Tara,
Good night.
thanks a lot.
Remember that
Okay.
somebody reading these might not even know that we have that.
Okay, no, that's a good point, I'll revise that.
Tiny point.
Yeah. No. So you're gonna make a motion to approve based
Yes.
on that change? Okay, I second it.
He's trying to get out of here.
Well,
He's a
it's gonna
smart
be a
man.
while, but yes. Any discussion?
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Doesn't she have more things that she's talking about? I thought
Let's,
Becky,
are you voting on the minutes right now?
Yeah.
To approve the minutes?
Yeah.
oh, just the minutes, okay,
Yeah.
yes. All in favor, we did. All in favor.
Did you think that was my motion to adjourn?
Yes.
I'd do it if I could.
He was packing his, he tied it on at the same, like a wall. Packing his badge. He's only gonna vote for the minutes if he can get it.
Exactly.
Way to go,
Everybody gets
Stephen.
up and walks out. Wow, that was early.
Nicely done, Chris.
Committee, CPA, we met last night, and we did a number of placeholders for the town meeting that we have to finish up on. 35,000 for the trails. They have to come before us, Dave, and present that money, what they're gonna do. The Rex put a $60,000 placehold on. They don't, which is to do work on the land on Burgess Street. They don't know if they're gonna need it or not, but they're gonna come back with a presentation. And also Jean Bourbon put a placehold for some housing, on some of the lots that the town owns to do.
Oh, for the housing authority?
Yeah, Housing Authority, so.
Great idea.
So those are then there's no solid money to anything except the trails one, but they all have to come and be approved. We just put placeholders on them because time is of the essence now.
What is your time frame? When do you need proposals and things? I don't think,
I think it's maybe March 1st. I think that may be the cutoff.
okay.
But we don't have a meeting before March 1st, so we had to put these placeholders in now.
Oh,
So if there was something that you wanted to do, you'd have to talk to Penny
Well-
and see if would have a meeting.
and this is for the annual town meeting in
Yeah.
end of June?
Yep, mhm,
Okay.
yep.
Well, no, I just didn't know that they had
Yeah.
already set dates for that.
So that's pretty much what we did last night. So.
Bless you.
Anything on Trails Committee?
The meeting is the second Thursday
Okay.
Of every month. Becky, it's not this Thursday, it's next Thursday.
I thought it was this Thursday.
Oh,
It's in the calendar.
I'm sorry, it's this Thursday because of
Yes.
Valentine's
Yes,
Day.
yes, all right.
So it's this Thursday.
Yeah, they moved it up.
And Lakes Advisory has not been meeting, I don't believe. And we go on to, we're down to
Your signatures.
Solitude
Oh.
Lake Management.
Yep, so we asked them because they don't get sent, but for the reports from them, and I think, Doug Vizard there made a really good point, and I didn't realize that the company they use, ESS, doesn't do the actual treatment, because when I was going through these reports that they're supposed to give us a year-end report on what they've done, their pre-survey, their treatment, their post-survey, all of it is keep doing it every year. So it makes a good point that this company that they're using does the survey and the recommendations. They're not the actual company that goes in and does the treatment.
Right.
So, maybe that's something that might be good for, our other lake associations to maybe be thinking about too.
Right.
So right, we received our reports for Big Alum, Cedar Lake, Walker Pond, Hamilton Rod and Gun Club, and Pine Lake. So that's everything.
From Pine?
We got one from them. Yep. So, we didn't get one from ESS for South Pond, but I don't think they do their treatment every year, and that's probably why. I think the last one they did was 2016, so I don't know if they're like on a 5-year cycle. I didn't go through the whole permit, so. Right, they did, they identified whatever their target species was. I mean, I can go through each one if you want me to. I don't know that it's necessary, right? I just kind of going back to like that alum treatment, I think that, I'm surprised we haven't seen that yet, or people thinking about phosphorus and treatment of that, because I think a lot of these issues is related to that too. And I don't know enough about alum treatment or whatnot, but obviously targeting the phosphorus seems like the way to kind of move forward with these lakes, especially we're seeing the algae blooms. Cedar Lake was closed for quite some time.
Yep.
Solitude in their report to us said there's certain levels. It didn't meet those certain levels, but as a precautionary, they closed it anyways. I didn't realize that South Pond had such a big one as well. I think Big Alum had some as well. So something that I think
Long
that
Pond had a tremendous one.
Long Pond did.
Yeah. And the Quinnebog has all kinds of spots of it all the way down through.
Yeah.
So could we stay with that topic for a second? They're talking about the need for acquiring funds and significant funds. I wonder if it wouldn't be appropriate for us to tap, for example, $10,000 out of the environmental fund. We have a fund that everybody who comes in, every applicant who has to do an NOI, has to contribute money to the state and a portion of that to us.
Yep.
And it goes into a special fund, and we have 90,000 or
Yep.
90+ thousand in it. And it's earmarked specifically for things that are going to be used for conservation purposes.
There are restrictions on
I
it,
wonder if you
but
could do some research on that, not in the short term, but over time. Because I would be in favor of making some of that money go to use, and this certainly would be a good use. And easily the largest resident population of all of the surrounding towns is Sturbridge population of South Pond. I mean, we own the cove, all the way around the cove, up the sides of the cove, and all of South Shore Lake, all of South Shore Road. So that's all South Pond. And it would seem to me that as a major contributor, if not the major contributor, we really have a responsibility to come up with something, and that might be a way of using those funds in a very appropriate manner.
I'll have to do some research on what
Yeah.
the restrictions are for that. I mean, there are uses we can use it for, but I
Yeah.
don't know if it's specific and this is,
I think I'd like to learn more. I don't find that, I never was under the impression that, the treatment plant in Spencer was Shangri-La. I think it had a lot of problems and had continued to have problems, and he's talking about financing to solve continuing problems.
No, Ed, you're ignoring the fact that EPA has indicated that they are up to snuff relative to their plan.
But the plan hasn't been implemented, David.
That's not what they're saying. It had to have been implemented if they're passing the requirements.
Then
What he said was they were in compliance with the current plan, not
Right.
with the proposed
Current
expansion.
permit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they brought it up to speed to meet their current permit, which in the past they were not.
Right.
Yeah.
So they had to spend a bunch of bucks.
And now they've got a new
meet
plan.
this permit.
Right, and now they have another permit that they're gonna have to come up to snuff on.
Which is gonna lower the phosphorus limit on the discharge.
But I think we have to admit, if in fact that EPA is suggesting that they're in compliance, that we have to say, yes, they're in compliance. I mean, we don't have any
It's simple
evidence
to
of
look
that.
at the DMRs, the daily monitoring reports, discharge monitoring reports, it's public record. And look at them and see, if the phosphorus limit's 0.1, are they meeting point one? How often? And Mass Perg would be all over them if they weren't meeting their
Yeah, that's what
permit
EPA
requirements.
does. EPA looks at those numbers, and EPA says they're at least significantly within the realm.
Right.
Well, can we
Yep.
move on here?
All right, we have a special use permit for lead mine. It was originally going to be for Heinz. They've asked to use lead mine. This is Tinker Garden, which is an organization who does walks with young children and an adult, a parent, on conservation properties to develop critical learning skills, community culture, and learning in nature. They're asking to use lead mine. There's 2 different sessions that they're gonna be doing with dates in February and March. It's like a 1 hour, they'll bring kids out and do a little, either a scavenger hunt or something of that nature.
Did they fill out the form?
Yep, they have a form, they filled it out, they also have insurance for their organization, so they're able to give us, their insurance.
So what's,
For liability.
is there a problem with them doing it? Do you have a problem with it?
I don't have one.
Absolutely not.
No.
No.
Okay.
Sounds like a grand idea to me.
Right, and
Sounds
it's,
good.
they'll use the new parking lot down there, and it's only, the limit's 12 students, so it's not gonna impact, people using the parking lot down there for that 1 hour.
Just make sure they don't use that trail that,
Yeah. They're not gonna go that far. These are 4, 5, and 6-year-olds.
oh, yeah.
Or 18 months to, yeah.
So do we need to vote on that?
I just signed it.
We're not gonna talk
No, we
about
don't need to.
the negative,
Yeah.
correct, Becky?
Becky and I can just sign it off. We don't need, that doesn't need a,
Okay.
we're all
No.
set.
We're all set.
Yeah.
Yeah. Signed it in the right spot this time.
Hey,
Old dogs can learn new
I'll
tricks.
tell you. You told my wife you're gonna be good to me tonight.
She asked me to. I said, tell him to be good to me.
Yeah,
Well, there's 2 failing efforts.
I know. Okay, now we are at,
Signatures, right?
signatures, yeah.
All right, 12 Tantasco Shore Drive. This is a certificate of compliance for a tight tank install that was done here. It's fine, it's
fine?
seated,
Good.
it's, we also
Those are
have
the
a
words I like.
tree removal we're gonna talk about after that.
Which one is this?
Oops, sorry.
This is 12 Tantasco Shore. It's the first one, 300-1002.
Okay.
Next one, we have DP file number 300-760, 98 Gladding Lane. This is the site we went out to where there's two open orders of conditions here. They put a garage in, they put a septic in, the neighbor put a catch basin in. We had a complaint from the abutter about that. We went out there and looked at that. We asked that these 2 orders of conditions for this property be closed out. We asked the neighbor to file an after-the-fact NOI for the catch basin installation because we didn't review and approve it. This is the certificate of compliance for the septic system, which we went out and looked at our last site visit.
Okay.
Don't have any concerns with that. Lenny Jalbert just handed me the other certificate of compliance request for the garage, because it's different engineers that did those. I did draft a letter, as we discussed, to follow up with the neighbor about the notice of intent, so I sent that out.
Right.
51 Technology Park. We have 2 documents here to sign. One is the certificate of compliance. This is for an invalid order of conditions because they did not start work.
Okay.
So they need to close out the old one. So that's here. And the other one is the new orders of conditions, which I drafted and emailed to you to look at. I didn't receive any comments. Did anyone have any questions on them?
Invalid.
Dave had a question, which I answered and fixed, but
What was your question?
just clarification. Oh, no, never mind, it wasn't this one, sorry, that was thinking of 32 Tantasco Shore.
Yep.
Scratch that. He had a
Yeah.
question about that one.
We already passed by it.
So I have conditions for stormwater management, I have perpetual conditions, I tried to break everything down very nicely during construction, erosion controls,
This is for Technology Park?
yes. 51 Technology Park. I did get a phone call today from someone asking about revising the plan.
What did they ask?
Pick up issuing your permit today. Yeah. It might be a potential buyer looking for a second exit out. I did talk to them about, the permits being issued. You'd have to go through the amendment process. That might be hard to do on this site because it's a very small site. And with that in mind, where they'd want their exit to come out as part of their stormwater management, it appears that they probably would still need a good portion of their site for their stormwater management, so I didn't know if it was possible. So I did give that feedback. I said, you're welcome to look into that, and if you can still
Yeah.
meet the provisions for stormwater management, then it's something that I wouldn't anticipate the commission would have a concern, but there are other departments that they'd have to talk to about that anyway, so.
Okay, now we are on,
Tree removals?
right. We did Technology Park, right? We're all set there.
All right, we did one of the tree removals.
That was 121 and 123.
Yeah. It was
One pile. Yeah,
123,
yeah, we already did that.
yeah.
Well, you may still need this, we've got permits to do.
Mount Dan Road,
Yep, 58 Mount Dan Road. This is,
Faxon.
Tom Faxon, yep. So, he did submit this. I did go out there. It's 3 dead hemlocks. And, where's my notes?
Not a nursery rhyme.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
Where's my tree removal notes? So it's 4 trees total, yep.
really
One
not
birch,
I'm not sure that's true.
yeah. So.
Give it
yeah,
a couple more years.
I saw them all.
Studying.
There's no concerns. They have a lot of trees on this
Yeah,
site, which
I-
is great, so I don't see the need for a replacement there. I'd recommend
right.
approving it. There's no signature on it, you just gotta vote.
All in favor?
That was 58.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, Tom Faxon. Yeah. And then we're on Fairview Park.
Yes, this one we, looked at before,
This is the solar.
yes,
House?
yep. So, and I can pull it up too,
Pranowitz.
we're far from the wetland. I mean, if, do you want me to pull up an aerial and I can show you where on this? That might be helpful.
Yeah. That's quite the,
Oh, my God.
wish we got pictures like that for all our
I know.
permits.
I'm gonna start doing them that way myself. I think it'd be useful.
Was nice.
Okay, so this is 72 Fairview here. Wetland is over here. Let me put my layers on.
It's across the street.
Yeah, we're across the street. Over 100, maybe 150 feet away. I mean, I think it's kind of closer up here, probably some beaver activity. But we're still pretty,
And there's other houses in between.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So this was put on hold because there was question about the ownership of these trees within the right of way, and they had to figure that out, where the ownership was. So there's still quite a few trees that they want to remove, but right there, over 150 feet away from the resource area on the front of this property. Right, there's solar on the roof of this house that not reaching.
So the
its-
trees that are on the town are remaining?
Correct. Yep, they were gonna ask to do some pruning, but they've pulled that back too. They're not doing that. So they're just removing the private ones, town ones, correct.
So
Trees remaining.
Those trees really grew up since they put the solar on, huh?
I know, huh? So, I mean, I don't see any concerns as our wetlands so far away.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. All in favor? In favor. You got 3, Mr. Barnacle, you joining us or not?
No.
No? Okay. You get that? Barnacle didn't, 3 yeas, 1 nay.
Okay. I
Just-
know, I won't- It's being recorded, they'll do the minutes.
Okay,
but-
all right, I
But
just-
still, it's approved. I got that, thank you.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Your refusal to vote for that will not be noted anywhere except here, and we just think you're an old curmudgeon who likes trees.
So now on, we won't bother voting. Becky can just make her mind up as to what she's gonna put in.
Pretty much it.
Let's go.
She's
All
slowly
right,
taking over.
12 Tantascwa Shore, we had a tree removal here. If you remember, there was a large dead oak in the right of way. You
Yep.
had declining maple in his property, which is right next to his new tight tank. We approved the large oak in the right of way. The maple, we said we'd like to see some type of replacement before you approve it. We gave him the option of 2 trees or a tree and 2 shrubs. Talked to him. So his property's here. What he'd actually like to do is down here by the water, there's some stumps here. Oh, they're right here. It's actually much closer to the water. He's actually going to put a new tree here by the water and blueberry bushes. He does have a tree up front here and a lot of vegetation along the side.
What kind of trees are you gonna put?
So he's just saying deciduous, a native deciduous tree, which obviously I'm going to tell him to do a maple because it's right next to the water there, or something else, not an oak tree or a birch. And then he's
Not a birch,
proposing
too
2
small.
high
Yeah,
bush blueberry bushes.
Yeah, okay,
So.
great.
Just make sure that the wording specifically says high bush blueberry,
Yes, yep.
because
Something wrong with the low bush one?
we did have an instance where we had some serious difficulties with the landowner, who was one of the lake people, and we ended up saying, right up to 25-foot buffer line, we want a string of blueberries, probably 20 plants. And they said, fine. And we came back about a month later, and we saw the 24 blueberry plants they had planted, and each of them was between 6 and 7 inches tall, and that was their maximum
Yeah.
height.
Hey, slugs have to eat.
So we're at
That's right.
9 Library Lane.
9 Library Lane.
Oh, it must be getting late.
It is.
Sorry.
Well, Mr. G will do anything to.
What do we
move
do
this
at
along.
Library Lane? We already did that, didn't we?
Yeah, so we did that.
What? No?
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, we didn't do Library Lane.
This is 9 Library Lane, so we're on
Yeah.
Walker Pond. We have a damaged tree by beaver. It looks pretty old damage, but the tree is dead. I went out there yesterday.
Oh, come on.
I bet the landowner did that.
So you can see it right here. You can see the
Like
branches.
axe marks.
It's dead.
Okay, well,
I mean, their dock's right there.
Okay,
Otherwise,
let's-
obviously, I'd say leave it if no one lived there.
okay,
'cause it's
all in
great.
favor?
Don't we want to put a caveat on that, that if they drop it on the ice, they have to pull it off? Because we have seen that too, where they've dropped them on the ice, and then when the ice is out, it sinks to the bottom.
Hey, it's not a bad thing.
It's a good thing.
Yeah,
Habitat.
For us, it's not, but then they come back after the growth gets on it and say they want to take it out because it's a
Oh,
boat
yeah.
hazard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
or they'll just
Well,
take it.
we've
up
given
to
her
you.
it's not a
You're the
conservation
agent.
issue.
You put it down if you think it's necessary.
Yeah.
Um,
What else?
Agent report?
Yeah, so want to go over things that I issued last week, sorry. I was just thinking.
We all set for the MACC?
Yes, I have that on here too. Yep, everyone's registered. We got the email, so I think she used our email versus your email, so we got the emails. We just have to
Yeah.
pay them, but
Okay.
they're okay with us paying afterwards, obviously, municipality, it takes some time.
Right.
So, everybody's all set with that, that has signed up. 179 Main Street, that's the parking lot we went out to. Just to let you know, I did issue them a letter, just going over why we went out there, the reason for that, what our observations were, and that it appears that it would have required review, it wasn't reviewed. It also appears that it would meet the stormwater management provisions, for Wetlands Protection Act and for the local town, so to send us an after-the-fact notice of intent filing, including stormwater management.
Okay.
So, I said that, and I also attached with it just aerial photos of what that area looked like in 2011, 2012. And then, obviously, once they did the parking lot, what it looks like. So,
Yeah.
I think because there's, the asphalt millings, versus a hard packed gravel, and I guess if they would want to argue, I think there was a question when we were out there that there wasn't really a change. They could show that, but I think that this photo shows that that area is not maybe a hard packed gravel parking lot.
And the timing coincides with Blueberry Lane people, the
Right,
flooding down there.
exactly the
So
same
it's the
time.
Yeah.
smoking
And
gun.
I don't think they even thought it was coming from that, so,
Did you submit your pictures?
Did I submit my pictures?
nope.
See, that's why I brought it up.
Do it now.
That's not, that's
So I
like
did-
deja vu. She already asked that.
I
But
did
they're good enough, they should
issue
be
that
part of the
letter.
file.
I didn't
Yeah.
put like a time frame to submit us a filing. Obviously, it takes some engineering work, but I will follow up to
Yeah,
make
we
sure
need to
that
add
this.
a time frame to it. in my
Okay.
opinion.
Yeah,
No,
good point.
definitely.
And I understand that you got some more information about those roof drains going into the pipe Chad mentioned. I talked to Chad last night.
His neighbor called me before we went out there, and he said the same thing that Chad told you, that he
Okay.
had a gentleman company go out there, and same information. So
Okay.
yeah, yep. So right,
So
we
does
don't
that
know
mean that
the
there was a
origin.
false statement made on our site visit?
He acted like he didn't think that that was done, but he wasn't, the guy that we talked with, maybe, he didn't know about it.
Right.
But he's the owner.
And
Yes.
he's an owner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he and Dan,
Just two?
just two. That's what I understood.
Yeah.
But we somehow have got to point out that this is not correct. That Becky has to put something in writing that we now know that this is a fact. We can't just put it under the rug.
I don't think we are we?
Well, I did send him a letter.
Stipulating that the drains do go
Well-
under the parking lot?
I didn't say anything about that. We don't know that yet. I think that's gonna be a question that comes up with when they start doing a plan for their stormwater management.
Then
Yeah,
can
they
we
have to
make
do
sure
it.
that the question is asked in writing?
Okay.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it's gonna get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
Or Steve will forget.
Well, I don't think so.
What?
And I think even the plan, I mean, if that's a new pipe.
Old people need not
that,
apply.
that pipe wasn't shown on the original plan when they came in front of conservation for the, tree removal and the landscaping. That pipe wasn't on there. I don't know, we asked where it came from, and I think, right, it definitely needs to be a part of discussion, because that's a big part of stormwater. That's,
But can't we get a copy of the plan that Burton Engineering put together for the separation of those two parking lots? And
I
might
can
that,
see if there's another,
there has to be a plan for those two parking lots.
planning might have that.
Because remember that, at first, Rum's had the whole parking lot.
I thought you showed us a plan that had some trees and it had a request.
Yeah, but I think planning, well, on the other side of the building, outside of jurisdiction, they did pave and they had to put a basin in. Remember he was saying that when we were
right.
out there? There must be a plan for that.
Yep.
But I think the top portion of that site, from my understanding, is they weren't increasing impervious up there. They were just replacing the existing, and they actually decreased some with some landscaping, I guess. So they weren't subject to the town stormwater provisions because they weren't increasing. So if you don't increase, then you don't have to do any
But then they
upgrades
expanded with that whole back.
in the back,
area.
right?
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Okay, but while we're on that topic, the next property over, Stephen went out with you guys and looked at a problem on that other side, which we don't want to
Yes.
forget about.
It's next.
Okay, next up, good.
Yep.
See that stack of stuff? You earned your buck last week.
That's all for tonight.
So
Good one,
that's
you're not going home yet.
almost. It's 173.
Destiny and I, you won't have a quorum.
Can we vote that we don't care about this? Or give a shit factor and cut.
Where did I save that plan?
Careful. Sorry. That's right, we're on television.
Okay, so
pictures.
173 Main Street, and I scanned these plans, but I think I scanned it and then I forgot to save it. Oh, I know where I saved it. This is the new garage at that gas station back there. So they have a detention basin back here, and then we saw this, and we're like, what is going on here? So I pulled out the plans for this. So a project came in, an NOI came in, conservation denied it. They came back with a revised plan, conservation approved it, someone appealed it, it went to DEP. DEP issued a superseding order. Not sure why they had to, because they said it was fine, but they issued a superseding order for this. We approved it anyways at that time. It's also been closed out with a certificate of compliance, so there was no ongoing conditions on the certificate of compliance for anything. I think they obviously still have to do stormwater management. We don't have anything from them showing that they've done any maintenance or anything here, but, let me see if I can pull the plan up.
The first plan that came to us had a car wash on that site.
Yeah.
In addition to what was there.
There we go. I scanned them and I forgot to save them in the right place. Okay, so let me go to this first one. Okay, so this is what the site looked like. See this drain here going all the way in the back?
Yep.
That comes from a catch basin off of 131 right here. This was existing, and you can see the outline of this?
Yep.
That scour already there. So this was kind of an existing problem.
Yeah.
And then when they came in, they took the pipe and they had to move it on the outside of the property. And then it gets discharged like right about here. I can zoom in. So this also collects here. I think it overflows here, and then it drains out here too. So now I'm not sure if, go ahead.
Well, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm going to. What it looked like to me is that this failed. It looks like this is all washed out here, and it looked to me like this basin doesn't really, it's a failed basin, is what I thought. But we didn't actually.
We didn't
all
walk
the
up
way
there.
to the
Well,
top.
that's what I was thinking happened too.
Yeah.
And it may be, no one's been maintaining it. There might be a lot of sediment in there. But I think it's the pipe from the highway coming out.
It's creating such a big channel there.
Yeah. It might be their
We'll have to
basin
check it
too.
Yeah.
But it really doesn't
Put it on our
matter
next
if
site
the
visit,
basin
Becky.
has failed.
Okay.
If the basin has
Because
failed, they've
you
got
can
to
sort of
repair it.
see it right here. It looked to me like this was the basin, but that
There you
Right.
go.
but that it had just washed out and
Yeah.
it doesn't exist anymore. It's just it's going in here and it's going straight into this channel, and everything's washing out.
Right. And it might be.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't walk up there.
Between the, next to that house and coming down, there was always a seepage, like an out of the hillside.
Oh, yeah, we saw that.
Yeah.
We saw that, yeah. So if you go,
We can take a look at it and see what the heck has happened in the back there. 'cause that
see,
would-
this is it right here.
Yeah.
But then as you go down, I mean, the question I guess I have, and we need to look at it better, is, so this is where the stream comes in? Is it right here, or it's
Yeah.
right where I'm standing maybe? It might be right where I'm standing, but look what it did to the actual stream
Yeah.
going down. This is down towards Blueberry Lane.
Right. It's all
Yeah.
washed out. It's
Yeah.
all under. The trees are all getting undercut.
Yeah.
On
Yeah.
either
Yeah.
side. I mean, it's a problem.
Yeah. And the thing is too, well, it's not really a Mass DOT failed structure. It's the same thing. It's been there, but it's causing an impact.
Right.
But it's,
Yeah.
who is it? It's probably both, I think, a little bit, but.
But they have to take care of it coming off their land.
Now, does it ever cause a problem at that culvert that goes under Blueberry Lane?
Wow.
I don't know.
Or backing up?
Yeah,
That's
it
a
seemed
good
like we would've heard
DPW
about that,
question, because
But
we
it goes down
walked,
and there's a big wetland down there.
could-
And it dips back over.
On this.
On the other side.
here.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but you can see, I mean, it's just impacted all the way down here. We didn't walk all the way to the culvert.
Right.
We got caught up
Yeah,
in
we
the
s-
multi-floor
We
rows.
stopped right
Yeah.
about here.
Yeah. But I imagine, I mean, I did drive through there, yesterday was Monday. I
Yeah.
mean, today's Thursday. I'm wishing, I don't know now.
All right, so we'll put it on,
Alright.
put it on a site visit to take a look at that.
Okay.
All right?
This is
good.
on this person's property right here. Should I contact them or just go from the garage?
We can contact them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
And
I don't
ask
think
them
they'd
if
have a
they,
problem.
ask them,
Right, did they notice anything? All
Yeah.
right, I'll get their contact.
And bring that plan with you.
Okay.
Because if that's a failed detention area,
See, this is the concern, yeah.
gotta
I'm
be
almost
fixed.
positive that that's what the problem is, that this this drain right here just blew out this back side and it's all, you know, you can see there's an overflow
Yeah.
here too, but I think it overflowed a lot.
I do remember that when these plans were presented to us, we fought like crazy because we didn't believe the engineering could possibly take the flow of water that existed then. And that's like 8, 10 years ago. And the amount of water we've been receiving is greater now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was this that Michael?
Well, you know, I have the same
Malone?
concern about that little sinkhole that Lenny was selling tonight. Because that water does comes flying down that road,
It does,
you know.
but I
And it goes in there, and that's a storage area, period, you know. So if they fill it up,
But I think it just drains so fast that it
Yeah.
doesn't
right,
get a
that it's
chance
not,
to.
right, it's not.
damn those Merrimack
yeah.
soils, huh?
It's definitely storing and infiltrating water, but I don't
Right.
think right. Now, all right, last one, I went out and I met with the owners of that development at the end of Lane 8 right there, New Boston
Yeah,
Road, so I
with the huge stockpiles.
Yep,
Yeah.
so I contacted them immediately, and got them on the phone.
It was pretty bad.
So I talked to them, I did issue them a letter as well. Did go over that, you know, asked them if they had a stormwater pollution prevention plan, which the question wasn't really answered, I'm gonna say no. And talked about the site, I mean, he did have some concerns because he did mention that a lot comes down that road and washes out. And that a lot of, their site is actually a little bit lower. I was like, well, we need something out there because obviously we had this storm, right, ground was frozen, a lot of water came off your site too. It's making it down the road, sediment, we could see it, you know?
Right.
So they were fine, I met one of them out there.
They put
Monday
hay bales around it, or what?
morning, he had a stockpile of straw bales he bought with him. He didn't know where to put it, so he wanted to wait. So he was gonna put those up, this one spot where we actually could see there was some frozen water there by one of the stockpiles by the road. So it looks like a lot is coming down the road, and actually there used to be a berm from his site in the road before they took out, so water used to just go right down the road, but now it's actually going onto their site. I think with all the rain we got, obviously their stuff was washing out, that was washing in, filled up and overflowed.
Yeah.
Cause actually, and I mean, looking at it and standing there on site with them, it does make sense, and when you don't get this huge storm, a lot of it probably stays on the site. So he was gonna put stuff up there, I talked to him about preventative measures on their site, like the big pile of stumps they have that they could make into wood chips, that they should be doing stabilization around as they go. I recommended that if they don't have a stormwater pollution prevention plan, that they put one in place. So I put that all in writing. I'm gonna go back out there. I mean, when I was out there Monday morning, it was still, you know, ground was cold and frozen, so they weren't really able to get silt fence and stuff like that in, but he was gonna go back out later this week, and see what else he could get put in place. Probably can't get a silt fence in the ground, but maybe by,
So it seems like he was working with you?
absolutely, yeah, but I mean, I did say you have a lot of open,
Can you wood chip
Exposed.
those stumps?
you can.
Sand them and everything?
Yeah.
What kind of a machine would do that?
A chipper.
A chipper, that would eat a
One hell
chip.
of a big chipper.
Yeah,
Well, they have chippers that they don't even mess with, that take whole trees
Yeah.
and run them through. They
Well,
can-
yeah, the original chipper was, when I was working for the state, we called it the chuck and duck.
Yeah, right.
Vicki, one of the things that we can't lose sight of with that site is that that man has already constructed several houses. He's already had several copies of our orders of conditions. And in the boilerplate of the orders of conditions of each one of those sites, it specifically says, if you stockpile materials for more than 30 days,
Yeah.
it must be covered with a tarp or covered with green cover. That was covered with nothing.
right, well, that one's not.
So, no, but he knows that that's one of our
Oh,
stipulations.
right, and any developer should know, you know, if you have
Yeah.
that much land open, you should be doing those things, right? No, I understand,
So tell them,
I did,
put a cover on it.
okay.
And I think you were suggesting the chips.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, and they're planning on doing that once
Good.
it's
Yeah,
not
they should've
frozen
done it a long
anymore.
time
I mean, I told them they should have done it before
Right.
winter came, you know, and I try to do that with a lot of our project sites that are ongoing, is having them do things beforehand, so they're not,
Proactive?
yeah,
Yeah.
I know. Just make a recording and say it, so I don't have to keep saying it.
Come on, Becky.
All right. when when I went out to Tantascwa Shore Road there for the certificate of compliance and where he's gonna put the trees or whatever, he actually wants to do like a retaining wall replacement on the lake, so we've been talking about that too. But I went out there during that storm, and that road is it's an issue, and I think we need to try to work with them. So I talked to him. I know he's a new owner in that area, but he's at the bottom of the hill there, and he's getting all the runoff and sediment. That they really need to do something because it's leaching towards the lake. So I've talked to him a little bit about, the betterment process and what, other people in town have done to pave roads and make improvements. I think that I need to start working maybe when our new DPW director starts, because I guess a lot of the neighbors are saying, well, town comes in, they plow it, and, they bring more gravel in to fill it, which is great that they're helping try to maintain it, but all that gravel is just getting washed out continually. But I think what he was saying too is that, previously used to drain towards that wetland off the side there. And now with all the maintenance activities and plowing, it's kind of redirecting, it's going right down that right away into the lake. Maybe there's something we can do with DPW to try to temporarily make some improvements over there, but try to be proactive with that neighborhood to get them to maybe try to address those issues, because there's some sediment issues there.
Okay,
What's that?
all right.
I'm giving her my blessing on that idea.
Yeah,
Good luck.
I know. That's all I got.
You can see one of the problems, they keep digging into the side of that hill, going closer and closer to the road.
Yeah.
And they've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to adjourn.
Have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Well, I got a few things.
All in favor, yeah.